Chapter 1047. However, right at that moment, Su Yu's control body suddenly raised the heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword and swept it across his chest. Not only did it cancel out most of the mortal fairy's strength, but it also propelled him several thousand feet backward. You? Bing Wuching was shocked. She didn't expect Su Yu to break free from her seal. How'd he do it? However, she didn't have much time to think. A round ball that was half blue and half yellow came crashing toward her. In response, Bing Wuching merely glanced at it briefly. She raised her hand and grasped it firmly in her palm. The underworld pearl of the ghost prison's great emperor. If all 9 of them were gathered, I might be a little afraid. But one. Bing Wuching tossed it casually, and the underworld pearl smashed in front of Han Fei and the others who were trying to escape. The earth-shattering force caused the mountains to crumble and the earth to crack. Whoever dares to take a step forward, I'll send you on your way. Bing Wuching's indifferent words followed. However, none of them dared to run anymore. In front of the mortal fairy, they were no different from ants. Su Yu was shocked. This was the first time someone had caught the underworld pearl. The mortal fairy was indeed an opponent beyond the realm. However, Su Yu wasn't discouraged. He didn't have the time to look for the underworld pearl. With a backhand strike of silk, he tore the space apart. After several attempts, he finally opened a crack in the void wide enough for one person to pass through. Then, Su Yu fished out a wooden bird, mounted it, and escaped into the void. He was going to imitate Zhan Wushuang and tear the void open to return to the Jiuzhou continent. The probability of success was high if he relied on the wooden bird that could travel through the void. Bing Wuching raised her brows and made a grabbing motion. The crack in the void that Su Yu escaped through was torn open a terrifying distance of 1,000 feet just as it was about to close. However, just as Bing Wuching sneered and was about to give chase, all of a sudden, a transparent silk shot out soundlessly. Bing Wuching didn't even look at it. She stretched out her index and middle fingers and pinched the silk between her fingers. It wasn't damaged at all, and she caught it easily. Oh, the silk of the chaos multicolored butterfly. Although it's a mutant and the silk produced isn't pure enough, you have a lot of good stuff on you, Bing Wuching said calmly. She clenched her fist, and the silk was melted into gas. But just as Bing Wuching finished speaking, a soundless sword chi floated toward her in a mysterious trajectory. Bing Wuching was caught off guard, and her arm was cut by the sword energy. In an instant, a trace of captivating red blood seeped through his torn sleeves, drenching it. Heavenly Orchid Silver Bamboo Sword. If your swordsmanship is a little better, you might really be able to injure me. Unfortunately, I won't give you any more time to grow. Bing Wuching shook her sleeves, and her injuries healed. She took a step forward and was about to give chase. However, just as he was about to take a step forward, he suddenly stopped in midair. A faintly discernible sense of danger suddenly appeared. As you wish, a soft shout was heard. Immediately after, 3 streaks of silver sword light appeared from the void, as if they had been prepared. They formed a triangle and surrounded Bing Wuching. The angles of the 3 swords weren't completely equal. Instead, they formed the formation at a very special angle. With Bing Wuching's sharp eyes as a demonic god, she discovered the mystery of the sword formation's angle at a glance. Not a bad sword formation. It seems disorganized, but in fact, every sword's position is the best choice. The 3 swords, top, middle, and bottom, each seal off 3 directions. There's no way out for the person trapped in the formation. Just from this point alone, it can be considered an above-average sword formation. Complemented by the heavenly orchid silver bamboo, sword's void energy. It's even more mysterious and unpredictable, and its power has increased exponentially. Bing Wuching's eyes were filled with admiration. I have to say, you've exceeded my expectations once again. I thought that the familiar demonic dragon was your limit. I didn't expect you to hide such an ultimate killing move. Among the younger generation of Jiuzhou, I don't think anyone can resist this sword formation except for Zhan Wushuang. Hints of surprise and admiration bloomed on her face without concealment. At the same time, there was also an undisguised murderous intent that was getting deeper and deeper. The more unexpected Su Yu was, the more potential he had for future growth. Hence, the more she had to eliminate him to avoid future troubles. Slash. In the void, Su Yu was ready to strike, ignoring Bing Wuqing's words, the familiar demonic dragon. The three silver swords were surrounded by fluorescent light, turning from solid to illusory, like light and shadow penetrating the void. There was no pause in the process, and no sword mark was left behind. In a breath's time, the three silver swords switched positions and pierced through the figure in the middle. Three bloody wetness appeared on Bing Wuqing's chest, gradually soaking a large part of her bosom. However, Bing Wuqing's face was calm. With a wave of her hand, the wetness on her chest stopped expanding, and her injury was instantly healed. Is the sword formation's power only this much? Apart from its sharpness, there's nothing special about it. Three swords against one sword. Besides the increase in number, there's no overlapping power, Bing Wuqing commented lightly. If you don't have any other tricks, this is the end. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly lowered her head and looked at her chest. The three wetness on her chest started spreading again. Bing Wuqing frowned and brushed her chest again. The blood stopped flowing, but after a while, it started bleeding again. This happened again and again. Finally, a grave look appeared on her face. The wounds can't heal. With the point of her jade-like hand, the clothes covering her three wounds were burned to nothing, revealing her fair skin. Similarly, there were also three hair-thin incisions that were exposed. A wisp of mortal fairy's strength brushed past, and the cuts healed, but they split open again. Bing Wuqing pointed her jade-like finger at the wounds, enlarging them until they were clearly visible. The wounds were filled with silvery lines, and every time the wounds healed, a silver line would cut them open again. Sword energy. Bing Wuqing's face changed slightly. Immediately, majestic mortal fairy's strength surged between her fingers, and she inserted it into the wounds, enduring the pain. The enormous mortal fairy's strength and hundreds of streaks of sword energy wore each other down. And finally, the sword energy was worn out, and the wounds healed. However, there were still two other wounds. Moreover, so you could use it more than once. Without waiting for Bing Wuqing to heal the other two wounds, the Nine Sun sword formation was activated again. This time, the swords were faster. Like phantoms, they pierced through Bing Wuqing's shoulder, abdomen, and chest. Three more bright red bloodstains appeared on her body. If this is all you've got, you can't hurt me. Unhurriedly, Bing Wuqing dissolved the sword energy hidden in the wounds one by one. However, right at that moment, Su Yu uttered the word, explode. The sword energy hidden in the other four wounds erupted abruptly. The sword energy rampaged, and part of it rushed into Bing Wuqing's body, while the other part sliced through her flesh. In the blink of an eye, the surface of Bing Wuqing's body was torn into pieces, and hideous and horrifying bloodstains appeared. The internal organs in her body contained the power of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword, and there was nothing it couldn't cut. Apart from a mortal fairy's skeleton, everything inside was crushed by the sword energy. Severely injured by the explosion of the sword energy, Bing Wuqing's face turned red, and she opened her mouth to spit out a mouthful of golden blood. An agonized expression appeared on her face. She retracted her foot that had stepped out of the void. At the same time, with a wave of one hand, she released a defensive barrier condensed by the mortal fairy's strength around her. Then, she sat down with her legs crossed to heal her wounds, and at the same time, dissolved the sword energy that had seeped into her limbs and bones. After all, she had the body of a mortal fairy, and her recovery ability was astonishing. The wounds on the surface of her body melted like snowflakes, and she recovered in no time. Her appearance was smooth and flawless. Her internal injuries were also recovering at an astonishing speed. The injuries weren't troublesome. What was troublesome was the thousands of sword energy. As long as the sword energy wasn't extinguished, her injuries would never recover. Staring deeply at the sword formation, Bing Wuqing's expression turned solemn. I didn't expect there to be a top-notch sword formation in Jiuzhou. Although it's only an incomplete sword formation, judging from the explosive power, the complete sword formation is likely to surpass the divine level. The Nine Suns Cosmos sword formation was a sword formation that had been buried in history. Suyu had no idea what she was thinking about. As her greatest trump card, it still hadn't caused any substantial damage to Bing Wuqing. Suyu didn't feel very relieved. However, the way Dongfang Tianfeng looked at Suyu was as if she was looking at a monster. Since ancient times, mortal fairies had represented the pinnacle of power in JoJo, controlling the life and death of billions of people. A single look, a single thought, or a single word could change the fate of millions of people. Everyone below the mortal fairy was a mere ant. This saying wasn't just for show. Even the most top-notch, all-creation strong men were just slightly larger ants in the face of a mortal fairy. However, Suyu could single-handedly injure a mortal fairy, forcing her to stop and heal her injuries. No one would believe it if they told others about it. What are you waiting for? To stay and wait for death? A void split open beside the sacred Kylin, and Suyu returned on the giant wooden bird. He grabbed the sacred Kylin, which was about to collapse, and left immediately. Bing Wuqing needed some time to recover from her injuries, so escaping was the best option. Swoosh! Han Fei and the others hesitated for a moment, then gritted their teeth and plucked up their courage to escape. Before they left, they looked in the direction where Suyu had disappeared, all of them wearing a complicated expression. They had prided themselves on being the pride of the heavens, but they had been rescued by a nobody. Judging from the strength he had displayed, they weren't even on the same level as him. Han Fei couldn't help but blush slightly when he recalled that he had invited Suyu to join his Imperial Guards. In the blink of an eye, the group of people had escaped. In the void that was as dark as ink, Suyu's eyes were full of solemnity, and his face was pale. Performing the Tri-Sun sword formation twice in a row had consumed a lot of energy. Not only his vital energy, but also his spirit. If he hadn't broken through to the illusionary soul realm in advance, and his soul energy had skyrocketed, he would have collapsed the first time. Now, he was barely holding on and keeping his head clear. Dog Kylin, you don't have any more tricks up your sleeves, do you? Suyu turned around and sighed. The sacred Kylin was so weak that it couldn't even move, and its body was about to collapse. I've heard a bad word again. The dog Kylin opened its mouth with great difficulty and sighed bitterly. What else can I do? She has even given up on the body of a demon. What else can I do? Let's run for our lives. Suyu's heart was full of danger, but he remained calm. Even if I want to escape, I need a way. I'm not Zhan Wuxuang, and I can't find a way to return to the Jiuzhou continent by escaping into the void. As the artifact spirit of the glittering jewel wonderland, you should know, right? Chapter 1048. The first option is ruled out. There's only 1 month until the celestial realm opens. As Suyu spoke, he looked at the boundless, pitch-black horizon. The second possibility is also impossible, as I don't have the coordinates of the Jiuzhou continent. Don't you have a third way? Suyu's expression turned grave. The sacred Kirin shook its head. Apart from that, there is no other way. When this cage was built, there were strict restrictions on leaving a back door. Otherwise, it would be easily used by the glittering jewel demon god. Suyu was speechless. Had he already reached the end? However, the second method is still feasible. The sacred Kirin suddenly chuckled. Suyu frowned. I don't have the coordinates of the Jiuzhou continent. Wait, you do? Ah, kid, you've been smart all your life, but you've been muddle-headed this time. Who am I? The god of the 9 prefectures. The 9 prefectures are the boundless worlds that I derived from the source of God. How could I not sense the existence of the 9 prefectures? Delight appeared in Suyu's eyes. This means that we can escape for some time. According to the sword energy that I left behind, she will recover in half a cup of tea's time. We only have half a cup of tea's time to put some distance between us and escape from her detection range. Even a mortal fairy couldn't detect an unlimited range. He would be able to escape from Bing Wuqing's threat if he could escape a certain distance. For a mortal fairy, the distance of half a cup of tea's worth of escape was negligible. He, who said we only have half a cup of tea's time. I play a little trick. She won't be able to get away without an hour. The sacred Kirin laughed strangely. Hands and feet? Suyu was surprised. What other tricks could he use? Have you forgotten about the remnant souls of the mortal fairies in the cemetery? Sacred Kylan said. I arranged for these remnant souls to guard the glittering jewel demonic god. Who knew that this bunch of trash would let the glittering jewel demon god escape without even knowing? Now is a good chance for them to make up for their mistake. Suyu's eyes lit up. He had almost forgotten about them. Even if they were remnant souls, they were still mortal fairies when they were alive. Moreover, the sacred Kylan had done something to them. He was afraid that those remnant souls would take extreme measures. An hour was more or less enough. Direction, southeast. The sacred Kirin raised its paw and pointed to the southeast. As Suyu looked in that direction, a glimmer of hope appeared in his eyes. In the cemetery, Bing Wuching tore apart a remnant soul that approached her. Her white hair was disheveled, and blood trickled down the corner of her mouth. The remnant souls in the mausoleum erupted and besieged her one after another. The method of besieging her was all self-destruction. One or two of them might not pose a threat to him, but if there were 100 of them, he would not dare to face them head-on. However, it was extremely difficult to escape. He could only spend time to defeat them one by one. Holy Kirin, Su Yuxian. Once again, Bing Wuching suffered another blow from her self-destruction, and she was extremely furious. After 10 minutes, the pitch-black world suddenly brightened up, and light entered his eyes. He was about to leave the pitch-black void and enter another world. However, when he got used to the dazzling white light, Su Yu's expression changed slightly. He stopped at the entrance and did not enter. After a moment of silence, Su Yu turned around and said coldly, "You brought me back to the glittering jewel wonderland again." What came into view was an ancient pagoda that was over 100 stories tall. Standing at the top of the pagoda, they could see the entirety of the martial garden with a single glance. Suyu even saw some of the Red Blood Palace's inner sanctums, students loitering in the vicinity, looking for natural treasures. After going one round, the sacred Qilin had actually brought him back to the martial garden. Hey, I am the artifact spirit of the glittering jewel wonderland. Have you ever heard of an artifact spirit being able to leave the artifact? The sacred Qilin sighed. The destruction of the glittering jewel wonderland is imminent. We can't leave it alone, or there will be endless troubles in the future. So he was furious. What does that have to do with me? Do you want me to die for no reason? After 10 minutes, Bing Wuching still had half the time to escape. Don't be nervous. I brought you here, of course, not to harm you. There is something I want to entrust to you, the sacred Qilin said helplessly. Then, its loose claws patted the martial tower from a distance. A shocking scene appeared. The top floor of the martial tower, the 100th story, was slowly opening. Swoosh! Before Su Yu could react, he was brought into the tower. Haven't you always been curious about what lies beyond the second story of the martial tower? Let me show you the 100th story, and you'll understand, the sacred Qilin said. As its voice trailed off, the pitch-black 100th story suddenly lit up. However, the narrow space that Su Yu had imagined did not appear. Instead, it was a vast, boundless world of multitudes. In the boundless forest, demonic beasts rested, spiritual plants, insects, and beasts were everywhere. In the distance, there was a human city. On it, many martial artists of different levels of cultivation flew into the clouds in horror, looking at Su Yu and the sacred Qilin who had suddenly appeared. From their point of view, Su Yu and the sacred Qilin had entered through a void that had suddenly split open, which shocked them greatly. Is this the illusion of the martial tower? Su Yu asked in shock. The sacred Qilin said calmly, "Won't you know if you hit yourself?" "Oh, bang. Bastard. Why did you hit me? Does it hurt?" "Yes." "Oh, that is the real world. Have we returned to the Jiuzhou continent?" "No, there is no spiritual energy and scent of Jiuzhou." So he was very surprised. This was not the Jinlong continent, nor the Jiuzhou continent. Could there be a third continent between heaven and earth? This is the place where the glittering jewel demonic god's power is sealed, the sacred Qilin said. It carried Su Yu and teleported to the foot of a towering mountain. Standing at the foot of the mountain, Su Yu was shrouded in a huge shadow. He did not know why, but he was inexplicably frightened and extremely uneasy. What mountain is this? Su Yu looked up. It is not a mountain, it is my remains, the sacred Qilin said calmly. When it finished speaking, Su Yu was carried into the sky by the sacred Qilin. Looking down, even with Su Yu's composure, he could not help but gasp. On the boundless land, there was a huge Qilin that was tens of thousands of feet tall. It looked very similar to the dog Qilin, but it was missing a Qilin horn on its head. Compared to the dog Qilin, this huge skeleton was many times more powerful. Standing in front of it, Su Yu had an impulse to worship it. At the same time, the blood in his body was surging, and his vital energy was in chaos. His whole body was shaking uncontrollably. It was like a mortal meeting a god. Is it your real body? Su Yu took a long time to calm his inner emotions and asked in shock. It was the first time he had seen such a huge beast body that was tens of thousands of feet tall. Well, I guess so. I have shrunk by 10,000 times. My real body is about the same size as the Jojo continent, the sacred Qilin said disapprovingly. The Jojo continent was so big? Su Yu thought of the ancient bronze tree goddess. Her real body also covered the entire underground of the Jojo continent. Were all gods so domineering? You want me to rob your tomb? Su Yu asked casually. The blue veins on the sacred Qilin's forehead twitched. Look again. When it finished speaking, the sacred Qilin waved its hoof, and the 10,000 feet tall skeleton suddenly trembled. The land under its feet, which had been settled for thousands of years, suddenly cracked and collapsed, revealing a deep pit that radiated thousands of miles. In the deep pit, Su Yu finally saw the truth. The sacred Qilin was not standing on the ground, but on a corpse. The corpse was exactly the same as the virtual shadow of the demon in the floating life door. Gao Wanren had a strong body, a green face, and fangs. His face was hideous and hideous. The only difference was that this demon was not pitch black, but blood red. This was the scene of our final battle. She used the supreme divine demon technique to shatter my celestial energy sphere, and I finally activated the seal to seal her celestial energy sphere into the cage that I had prepared for thousands of years. We perished together, the sacred Qilin lamented. Its tone was calm, but there was a hint of sadness. Su Yu stared at the demon's body that was being stepped on, and his eyelids kept twitching. He had an intuition that if he touched it, he would probably encounter unexpected dangers. Unlike the weathered remains of the sacred Qilin, the remains of the demonic god seemed to be alive, and there was an exceptionally terrifying power in its body. I only stripped the glittering jewel demonic god's celestial energy sphere, but the power of her demonic god was too great for me to dissolve. I could only seal her remains in the 100th floor of the Martial Tower, the sacred Qilin said. Sure enough, the remains were the power of the demonic god. Once Bing Wuqing was integrated into the remains, she could control the body and exert half of the power of the body of the demonic god. Witnessing the body of the demonic god with his own eyes, Su Yu felt that even half of the power of the demonic god was enough to destroy the Jojo continent several times. Hold on. Didn't you say that the sealed power of the demonic god would only appear after the glittering jewel wonderland is destroyed? A question occurred to Su Yu. Why was the sealed land opened when the 5-yard masters were present? The sacred Qilin curled its lips. Hey, can you at least respect my privilege as a deity? Actually, the real secret of the glittering jewel wonderland lies in the Martial Tower, the sacred Qilin said faintly. After sealing the glittering jewel demonic god back then, I was about to vanish into thin air. How could I have the spare energy to set up such a huge glittering jewel wonderland? Everything was accomplished by the Martial Tower. Su Yu pondered for a moment and said slowly, no wonder the last 5 floors of the Martial Tower were vacant during the challenge. In fact, those were the positions of the 5-yard masters, but they were arranged to guard a region. TSK, TSK. I can't hide anything from you. The sacred Qilin smiled and said with appreciation, That's right. I extracted a creature from the Martial Tower and created a region, including myself. I extracted 5 creatures and formed the 5 regions. The 5 regions then formed the well-known glittering Jewel Wonderland. Su Yu's eyes lit up. So, the Martial Tower is actually the pivot of the glittering Jewel Wonderland? If I control the Martial Tower, I can control the glittering Jewel Wonderland and change its rules. That would explain why the sacred Qilin, who had a whiff of godly spirit, could easily change the initial setup of the glittering Jewel Wonderland. Talking to you is so easy, the sacred Qilin said, gratified. Su Yu frowned. But it's not easy for you to talk anymore. It was so weak that it couldn't take shape anymore. What was talking to Su Yu was a mass of hazy smoke that was dimming rapidly. Chapter 1049. Su Yu suddenly understood. Yes. Are you worried that it will fall into the hands of people with ill intentions and cause a catastrophe? Chi. There are countless experts in Jiuzhou. Unless Bing Wuqing obtains the demonic body, no one will be able to resist the combined power of the 9 prefectures kings in Jiuzhou. What I'm worried about is that once the demonic body appears, the other demon gods will sense it and descend upon Jiuzhou. That will be the true catastrophe. Therefore, no matter what, he could not allow this demon god's body to appear in the world. Fine, one last question, Su Yu said calmly. Why did you look for me? Zhan Wushuang should be more suitable. Born to be an emperor, invincible throughout his life, unparalleled in the world. Because you are the same as me. The sacred Kirin sighed. Su Yu raised his brows. What's the same? He's as handsome as me. In any case, Su Yu could not refuse. Even if he didn't have to prevent the demonic god's body from leaking, he would have to rely on controlling the Martial Tower to escape from the glittering Jewel Wonderland. Then let's begin. The black shadow, formed by the sacred Qilin, was extremely faint, and it was about to dissipate. Amidst the black fog, a purple crystal gradually appeared and floated toward the top of Su Yu's head. Accompanied by a chilly sensation, the crystal entered the top of Su Yu's head, disappeared from his body, and appeared in his soul. Looking from afar, there was a thumb-sized crystal emitting a faint purple light beside the divine 9-dragon cauldron. The sacred Qilin's black mist suddenly trembled. It was extremely shocked. That cauldron is, so that's how it is. Ha ha. So it turns out that I've climbed up the social ladder. The sacred Kirin suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed, as if it had discovered a great secret. That's good too. With this cauldron, I'll be at ease, leaving the martial pagoda to you, kid. See you in the next life. The mist of the sacred Qilin was getting thinner and thinner. Solitude clung to the remains of the wandering Qilin. The fox died on the first hill, the source of the god perishing, but was also thinking about the body that had perished. Su Yu's heart was filled with sorrow. The destruction of the last trace of godly spirit of a Jiuzhou god meant that he had truly perished from then on. He folded his sleeves, turned around, and bowed. Senior, take care. Puff! The smoke dispersed and turned into nothingness. While Su Yu was in a trance, he seemed to have seen a transparent virtual figure nod at him and reveal a wretched, weird smile. Then, he turned around and stepped into the virtual sky world. The surroundings were empty, and Su Yu fell into a long silence. After a long time, he softly said, "The fox grieves for the rabbit's death? Come out, Bing Wuqing, or rather Lin Lang." Shua, above the Qilin's remains, where the sacred Qilin had vanished, a white-haired, demonic figure silently appeared. With his back facing Su Yu, he stood there for a long time without saying a word. "We've been fighting for 10,000 years, but you're still one step ahead of me," Bing Wuqing said dispassionately. It was hard to tell if she was happy or sad. Gradually, she turned to look at Su Yu. "The sacred Qilin's godly spirit is weak, so it didn't sense that I followed you in, but you should have sensed it. Why didn't you tell it?" Su Yu had sensed Bing Wuqing's aura not long after they had entered. But at that time, it has worked hard for billions of lives, and even after its death, it didn't forget its original intention. It shouldn't have been unable to rest in peace even at its last moment. Su Yu sighed deeply. How could he not know that if Lin Lang barged in, all his previous efforts would be in vain? She would obtain the body of the demon god, master the power of the demigod, and destroy the 9 regions to vent her resentment. However, even if he told the sacred Qilin, it wouldn't be able to stop him. Rather than that, he might as well let it go in peace. The sacred Qilin had underestimated Lin Lang's strength. Those remnant souls of the mortal fairies couldn't hold her off for an hour, only for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. When the 100th story of the Martial Tower opened, she took the opportunity to enter the final sealed place and approached the demonic body. Su Yu sighed helplessly. The devil was 10 times stronger than the righteous, but Lin Lang still got her way. As for him, he probably had no way out. So you died his place? Lin Lang walked towards Su Yu and smiled. Her smile was cold and complicated. Su Yu was mentally exhausted, and his vital energy was depleted. He didn't have a strength to fight anymore. He said indifferently, "You can say that. It's time to put an end to things between you and me," Lin Lang said softly. Lin Lang said softly, "Originally, I wanted to borrow the power of your time reversal to restore my demon god's body to its peak state. However, after experiencing so much, the moment you stay in time will put me in danger. So, I'm sorry, Junior Brother Su." This was probably her goal when she and Su Yu were in the Red Blood Palace. She wanted to help Su Yu hide his true identity in exchange for Su Yu helping her with one thing. However, everything was impossible now. In an instant, Lin Lang came in front of Su Yu, and they were less than 2 feet apart. Her slender, jade-like finger lightly touched the space between Su Yu's eyebrows, and she sighed with mixed feelings. Farewell. The jade-like finger touched the space between Su Yu's eyebrows, and the cold touch of death spread to his soul. However, all of a sudden, Lin Lang let out a muffled groan. Her jade-like finger suddenly withdrew, and her body quickly teleported 10,000 feet away. Her face was filled with deep bewilderment, and she said with extreme vigilance, "Who is it? Come out." A strand of hair fell from the top of Su Yu's head, and it condensed into a human figure. The back view was weathered, as if it had experienced countless years. "You are." Lin Lang's pupils shrank to the size of needles, and her delicate body couldn't help but struggle. Her jade-like face was filled with disbelief. Su Yu was delighted. "Master." This was probably the first time he had tried to rescue Su Yu. His promise to never help Su Yu under any circumstances was broken for the first time. Yin Yazi looked back and nodded. He said approvingly, "I saw everything with my own eyes. Well done. I'm very proud to have a disciple like you." His attitude towards the demon race, his endless methods, his schemes, and his wisdom were all impeccable. When he finished speaking, he casually touched the space between Su Yu's eyebrows. Warm energy filled Su Yu's body, and his vital energy and physical strength were restored to their original state. Even his mental fatigue dissipated. "You are Senior Yun." After being bewildered for a long time, Lin Lang finally uttered a shocking name. Yin Yazi turned around and sized up the blood-colored demon god's body on the ground. When he looked at Lin Lang again, he sighed and said, "The descendant of the Lin Lang family, one of the 9 most famous anti-demon families, surrendered to the enemy, gave up her identity as a human, and turned into a demon. Did you finally take this step?" Su Yu's ears twitched slightly. Lin Lang wasn't a pure demon, but a human? When Lin Lang heard that, her whole body trembled. She looked at Yun Yazi in a daze, and her face was filled with shame. Then, she bowed and said with emotion, "I didn't expect to meet my benefactor from 10,000 years ago with such a face. I'm ashamed of my benefactor's teachings. The past is fleeting. The moment you set foot on the demonic path, the kindness between you and me vanished into thin air," Yun Yazi said indifferently. "Humans and demons could not coexist. I thought you had really passed away in this world, so I ordered my disciple to come and take you away. The relic you promised me was just a joke of fate." Yin Yazi sighed silently. "Relic?" Lin Lang smiled bitterly. "Back then, I swore to fight the demons to the death. Before I left, I promised you that if I died, I would leave my lifelong comprehension to your disciple. Life is unpredictable. I was captured by the demons and couldn't resist the temptation of becoming a god. I accepted the demon emperor's demonic blood and became part of the demon royal bloodline. I'm ashamed of my benefactor's life-saving grace. So you couldn't help but feel surprised. The promise between them was actually about comprehension. Logically speaking, a person's comprehension ran through their entire life. If the cultivation techniques and martial arts paths were different, what was the point of Linlong's comprehension? The kindness is gone. There's no need to say more, Yun Yazi said indifferently, his whole body gradually emitting a fierce aura. Yes, the kindness was gone, and humans and demons could not coexist. Sensing Yun Yazi's hostility, Linlang felt an inexplicable sadness. After sleeping for thousands of years, countless old friends had turned to dust. The first person she saw when she woke up was her benefactor when she was still a human. Back then, she had prided herself on being the vanguard of killing demons. Who would have thought that when they met again, she would become the demon that she hated so much in the past? 10,000 years have passed. I didn't expect a top-notch deity like Senior Yun to fall like this, with only a remnant soul left. Bing Wuqing's face was filled with endless emotion. Your current strength is not even as good as mine, right? Bing Wuqing turned her head and stared deeply at Su Yu, then at the demonic body under her feet. After a long time, she said, "The next time we meet, I hope you're prepared." When she finished speaking, she soared into the sky, giving up on the demonic body and killing Su Yu, and left the martial tower. It was difficult to enter this place, but easy to leave. She raised her hand and tore a crack in it, leaving calmly. Before she left, a long and complicated sigh drifted between heaven and earth. The kindness is gone. The next time we meet, whether he is your disciple or not, please don't stop me, Senior Yun. If you try to stop her, she would kill him. The kindness from 10,000 years ago offset her killing intent this time. Yun Yazi did not stop her, watching her leave indifferently. So he was silent for a moment. "Master, if we really fight, what are the chances of winning?" 100%, Yun Yazi said lightly. Suyu was stunned. Then why not keep her? She has a weak body. God knows what she will do when she returns to the Jiuzhou continent. Blood will flow like a river. The demon race had many cruel cultivation methods. They would slaughter living beings at every turn to strengthen themselves. Now that Linlong's identity had been exposed, she would no longer hide harmlessly like she used to. She would probably set off a bloody storm. 100% for her, 0 for me. Is she that powerful? In Su Yu's impression, Yun Yazi was an invincible being, and the bottom line of his strength was unfathomable. Yun Yazi said, "Although her celestial spirit is weak, it is not fundamentally damaged. As for me, I have died once, and my celestial spirit is less than 1/100th of hers." Indeed, the glittering jewel demon god had only been sealed for 10,000 years, not killed. What if you were given enough time to recover? So you asked. Yun Yazi's strength would continue to improve as he recovered. Annihilate with a flick of my finger. How long will it take? So you asked. Yun Yazi looked at the Kailin and the body of the demon god under his feet and floated down leisurely. There are remnants of divine powers from the battle between two deities here. I will recover here, and there should be unexpected progress in a year. A year? So you pondered. The Jiuzhou continent was vast and boundless. Even for a mortal fairy, it would be difficult to find Suyu easily. Moreover, Linlong's arrival in Jiuzhou would definitely cause the 9 great prefectures' kings to work together to kill her. They might not dare to take the initiative to look for Suyu. A year should be enough. Of course, it was not Suyu's style to rely on Yun Yazi. He had to find a way to improve his strength. Your puppet will be fused successfully in a few days. Remember to refine it, Yun Yazi reminded him. Silver puppet? So you certainly would not forget that it was a weapon for self-defense. This retreat will take a long time. I will look through the ancient books and continue to find a way to dissolve the heaven-devouring demonic eye for you. Yin Yazi exhorted him before leaving. Besides, your 3-9 ordeals are coming soon. Hearing the latter, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He had the same feeling as if he was being watched by something. Chapter 1050. I'm prepared. Su Yu cupped his fists. Be careful. Yin Yazi closed his eyes and slowly recovered with the remaining divine power of the deity after the great battle. Now, it was time to return to Jojo. Su Yu tried to communicate with the purple crystal in his mind. As soon as his soul touched it, a strange message rushed into his mind. The name of this tower was unknown, and its function was unknown. It was an object of the sacred Cauldron. As the owner of the purple crystal, he was tacitly acknowledged as the master of the Martial Tower and could open the 1st and 100th floors of the Martial Tower at any time. From the 2nd to the 99th floors, there was no access. The 100th floor was a world created by the sacred Cauldron. It was similar in size to the Jinlong continent. After 10,000 years of reproduction, it was more prosperous than the Jinlong continent. Among the martial artists, the strongest had reached the level of stage 1, all creations. They were creatures personally enlightened by the sacred Cauldron and were the supreme rulers of this world. Now that Su Yu had become the master of the Martial Tower, he could naturally command the supreme ruler. However, he would explore this world later. What Su Yu was most concerned about was involved in the message. As the master of the Martial Tower, Su Yu could also change the rules of the glittering Jewel Wonderland. Reducing the trial time of the glittering Jewel Wonderland, or even disbanding, it would be a cinch. Disbanding it would be too wasteful. The glittering Jewel Wonderland was originally set up by the sacred Cauldron and was filled with many treasures and opportunities. After 10,000 years of self-reproduction, not only was its spiritual energy astonishing, far surpassing that of Jiuzhou, but all kinds of spiritual herbs and fairy items were also emerging. As long as the punishment rules of the 5 great parks were modified, it would be a top training ground. Moreover, it was a training ground controlled by Su Yu. All the resources here belonged to Su Yu alone. In terms of value, Su Yu is not inferior to any of the prefecture kings. After studying it for a long time, Su Yu tried to mobilize the purple crystal to change the rules of the glittering Jewel Wonderland. With a thought, all the challengers of the glittering Jewel Wonderland felt a repulsive force wrapping around them. Then, the power of space rippled out, and they were transported back to their respective prefectures. In the blink of an eye, the challengers of the glittering Jewel Wonderland were all transported. Su Yu's heart stirred. He left the Martial Tower and appeared in the glittering Jewel Wonderland. Looking down at the vast wonderland, Su Yu's emotions surged. The rewards of this trial were beyond imagination. He had directly controlled the mysterious Martial Tower of a deity, and he had obtained a peerless training ground like the glittering Jewel Wonderland. It's time to look for a Jinlong creature, Su Yu thought to himself. In the past, he couldn't protect them, but now he could provide them with the resources of a prefecture king. It was time to look for them. He searched for those familiar faces, those faces that he dared not forget. Xia Jingyu and Qin Xianer. In the Purple Cloud Palace, a huge vortex swirled outside the clouds. Spatial rifts opened up and figures fell out. They were all geniuses from the blessed and heavenly lands. Mo Tianxian, who had been waiting for a long time, and the true man of the purple cloud, rose to his feet in astonishment as he stared at the crowd. What happened? Why were you transported out after only a month? The true man of the purple cloud asked in shock. Mo Tianxian remained silent. After a while, she said, "What I find strange is that so many people are still alive after a month has passed. Having participated in the glittering Jewel Wonderland, they were well aware of the dangers in the Wonderland. There were 5 major disasters, and after 3 disasters, all of them would basically be wiped out. However, from the looks of it, less than 10% of the trial takers had died. What surprised Mo Tianxian even more was that almost all of the challengers from the Red Blood Palace had returned. What happened? Mo Tianxian caught hold of Gongsun Wuxia, who had fallen down in a daze. Gongsun Wuxia's little face was full of confusion. She spread out her hands and said, I was going to ask. I'm about to get my hands on an ancient cultivation technique. I'm so mad. It seemed like she was just a muddled ghost. However, Mo Tianxian noticed that Gu Taishu was reporting something to the true man of the purple cloud. The true man's expression changed drastically, and he looked at Mo Tianxian from time to time. Mo Tianxian sensed that something was amiss. Before long, the space in the sky stopped fluctuating, and everyone was transported back. Mo Tianxian took a second look at the last person who had been transported back, and she couldn't help but laugh coldly. You're quite lucky. It would have been better if she hadn't spoken. Su Yu's expression darkened. Thanks to the faction leader, I came back alive. Mo Tianxian laughed coldly and turned to look at the returning students of the Red Blood Palace. Her face was full of praise. Very good. Not only did the number of people who came back exceed the number of people from the Purple Cloud Palace, but your cultivation has also improved a lot. You did well. Now look at your gains. The faction will take half of them according to the rules. Facing Mo Tianxian, who would dare to hide anything, they all took out the treasures of heaven and earth that they had brought back. 100-year-old three-stripe blood ginseng. Mo Tianxuan's eyes lit up. A 200-year-old black snake fruit? Isn't this a spiritual object guarded by a 9th-grade almighty demonic beast? What? A 400-year-old soul sealing wood? Isn't this the top-notch spiritual wood guarded by the all-creation's rhinoceros king? Mo Tianxuan's initial nonchalance turned to surprise, and then to shock. Finally, she looked like she was deep in thought. It was too unusual. How could they have collected so many extraordinary spiritual treasures with their abilities? If the glittering jewel wonderland had undergone a change, and the various dangers had been resolved automatically, they would have been able to take advantage of it. However, the gains that the students of the Purple Cloud Palace had taken out were unimaginable. The best one was just a 100-year-old three-stripe blood ginseng. Why did the Red Blood Palace's performance stand out so much in the same trial? No, to be precise, they stood out in a devilish way. The students of the Purple Cloud Palace all stared at the invaluable spiritual treasures of heaven and earth with bloodshot eyes. They were the only ones who knew how the Red Blood Palace had gotten their treasures. The students of the inner sanctum of the Red Blood Palace were all a bunch of shameless robbers. In just 7 short days, they had become notorious. Whenever there was a spiritual treasure of heaven and earth that they fancied, they would snatch it. Girl, I've taken a fancy to your treasure, so hand it over obediently. What? You won't get it to me. Be careful, or I'll cut you with my sword. What? You dare to resist? Humph, you could try resisting. If you don't want your cultivation to be severed, if you want to touch the Book of the Heart's O's, you can try resisting. From delicate little girls to ferocious evil practitioners, they were all like widows who were bullied by village bullies in front of the Red Blood Palace's bullies. They had to swallow the humiliation and hand over the treasures that they had worked so hard to obtain. If that was the case, it would have been fine. After all, it was the law of the jungle. They could only blame themselves for running into the students of the Red Blood Palace. The most outrageous thing was that one day, the little devil of the Red Blood Palace met up with the main force of the Red Blood Palace and angrily rebuked them for not being bandits. Hence, the little devil vividly explained the profound meaning of bandits. Under the leadership of the little devil, the Red Blood Palace was no longer satisfied with looking for targets alone. Instead, they captured every challenger they found and forced them to work for them. If they didn't obey, they would immediately kill them. Even the greatest expert of a region was afraid of this group of people who couldn't resist. Anyone who was caught by them would become a captive. In the end, she organized the captured people into a troop and called it the Red Blood Palace's Peace and Friendship Diplomatic Troop. The mission of this troop was to snatch. As the leader, the little devil made 3 heavy demands. First, snatch all spiritual treasures that could be snatched. Not only did they have to snatch people, but they also had to snatch demonic beasts. It was said that even an ant's nest was not spared. Second, snatch all things that could be snatched. Be it natural treasures, or space rings, or even underwear, they must not let go of anything. Because of this, during the 7 days, Many naked challengers used leaves to cover their bodies, crying and begging those who knew them to give them clothes. Their tragic ends were heartbreaking, and those who saw them shed tears. Third, snatch all the time that could be snatched. The little devil leader made an important speech. Time was life, and wasting time was shameful and irresponsible. Hence, they had to be efficient. For this reason, the Peace and Friendship diplomatic troop implemented 2 shifts, taking turns to rest to ensure that diplomatic operations continued. Just like that, in just 7 days, the Red Blood Palace's Peace and Friendship diplomatic troop snowballed, wreaking havoc in the entire fairy realm. The name of the Red Blood Palace resounded throughout the fairy realm in just a few days, causing the challengers to tremble in fear. Even the Purple Cloud Palace did not escape, and many treasures were snatched away by the Peace and Friendship diplomatic troop. Thanks to senior sister Lu Chuyi, who mentioned that she knew Su Yuxian, she was spared the miserable fate of having her underwear snatched away. What about you? Mo Tianxian checked them one by one, and finally, it was Su Yu's turn. Su Yu threw out a blade of grass. Mo Tianxian looked at it and widened her eyes. That's it. This is a weed by the roadside. This weed is also a disciple of the Red Blood Palace, a token of my sincerity towards the faction. Well, don't stand on ceremony. Take it all. I don't want the other half. I don't believe it. Everything in the fairy realm is nourished, and even the weeds under one's feet are spiritual herbs. It's harder to find a weed in the fairy realm than to reach heaven. Doesn't it show the sincerity of a disciple that is harder than reaching heaven? You did it on purpose. Su Yu shrugged. What he meant was that he did it on purpose, so what? Mo Tianxian clenched her fists. The urge to punch him in the face was very strong. Don't think you'll be fine just like that. You wasted the faction's resources and only brought back a weed. According to the faction's rules, you must be severely punished as a warning to others. Mo Tianxian quickly found an excuse. However, as soon as she finished speaking, the Red Blood Palace looked over in surprise. Leader, we have something to report about junior brother Su's lack of contribution, a timid female disciple said weakly, peeking at Su Yu with a blushing face. Leader, I have something to report about junior brother Yuxian. Let me speak first. A cheerful and cute senior sister raised her hand with a smile. Leader, I have something to say to Mo Tianxian was dumbfounded. If she remembered correctly, before entering the glittering jewel wonderland, the elites of the inner sanctum didn't like Su Yu at all. Why was their attitude so different after a stroll in the glittering jewel wonderland? Mo Tianxian was dumbfounded by their expressions. What's wrong with the red-faced one? Are you on a blind date? What's with that flirtatious look? Do you think I'm blind? Wait, what did you say? You want to bear his children. Have you taken the wrong medicine? Mo Tianxian couldn't understand. Speak. Mo Tianxian pointed at a shy female disciple. The female disciple looked at Su Yu, her eyes full of reverence and gratitude. Actually, junior brother Su has contributed the most. Half of what we got belongs to junior brother Su. Mo Tianxian was stunned, almost thinking she had heard it wrong. The B** starred who brought back a weed was the greatest contributor this time? Swoosh! Suddenly, the true man of the purple cloud flew over, his face solemn. He said solemnly, Palace Master Mo, bring your precious disciple with you. Let's have a good talk. This is really tricky. Precious disciple? Mo Tianxian shot him a questioning look. Chapter 1051. Su Yu? Mo Tianxian was full of questions. Su Yu's strength had been shown in the Purple Cloud's secret realm. It was indeed amazing. But she didn't believe that he had the ability to change the Red Blood Palace and create such a miracle. Doubtful, Mo Tianxian said, Okay, I have something to ask too. The rest of the light swept over the Red Blood Palace disciples. There was a special disciple missing, and she couldn't have missed it. Su Yu nodded. Fine. He had to remind them of something. As he walked past Gongsun Wuxia, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He had brought back the glittering jewel fairy scepter, which Gongsun Wuxia desperately needed to dissolve the medicinal power of the spirit herb of immortality in her body. But there were too many people here, and it wasn't a good idea to take out a replica of an Emperor Beisan artifact. Mo Tianxian wouldn't let it go so easily. In the secret room, incense smoke lingered. Outside, the crane was famous, but inside, it was dead silent. After a long time, a cold snort was heard. She's seeking her own death, and it saves me the trouble of doing it myself. Mo Tianxian was referring to Bing Wuqing, no, glittering. However, from her tone, killing a mortal fairy demon like glittering was a piece of cake. We should inform all the prefecture's kings to take precautions. The true man of the purple cloud looked worried. After this demon falls out, I'm afraid she will do something very dangerous to enhance her strength. When he finished, the true man spat out a mouthful of purple blood, which was divided into 9 parts and disappeared into the void. The essence blood contained the news of the birth of the glittering jewel demon god's incarnation. Suyu saw it and was secretly amazed. The Purple Cloud Palace was only a mid-level faction in the Jojo continent, but even so, the leader had a channel to contact the 9 great prefecture's kings. The seemingly loose Jojo was much tighter than imagined. Finally, let's talk about you. Mo Tianxian stared at Suyu with a faint smile. In the Martial Tower, he threatened more than half of the challengers and forced them to sign the Book of Heart's Oaths. If Gu Taishu hadn't said it himself, it would be hard to believe that he had the ability to fight a mortal fairy. Isn't it time for you to confess your identity, Su Yuxian? Mo Tianxian was calm, with a hint of playfulness in her voice. Or maybe the name Su Yuxian is fake. The true man of the purple cloud was silent. He had also guessed that Su Yuxian was not his real name. After remaining silent for a long while, Suyu raised his eyes to look at the two of them and said calmly, "Yes, my real name is Suyu, and I come from another continent world." Mo Tianxian and the true man of the purple cloud were surprisingly calm, as if they had already known about it. The true man of the purple cloud's aged hands, which were hidden in his sleeves, relaxed slightly, and a wisp of all creation's mighty force was slowly withdrawn. The sharpness in his eyes was also hidden. I have another identity. I'm the ruthless demonic man who killed Xue Di and obliterated the 5 golden light guards, Suyu said calmly, revealing everything. The faces of Mo Tianxian and the true man of the purple cloud were filled with seriousness and seriousness. This is my identity. Do the two of you have anything to say? Suyu had already foreseen that there would come a day when he would reveal his cards. After pondering for a long time, the true man of the purple cloud took a sip of tea and said softly, "Tell us, aren't you afraid that we'll harm you?" Suyu shook his head and chuckled. "Firstly, you can't keep me here, nor can you injure me. On the contrary, if you fight me head-on, you will have a greater chance of dying. Secondly, we have a common enemy, the Central Prefecture's king, and we're on the same side. I can't think of any reason for you to harm me." His tone was not that of a disciple, but that of a peer. The true man of the purple cloud was not angry. Instead, he smiled in relief. "Ha ha, I think we have an ally now." This sentence was an acknowledgement that Suyu had the qualifications to be on an equal footing with them. Mo Tianxian did not speak, which was a tacit admission. "You already know my identity. Now I want to know who exposed me to you." Suyu had a calm smile on his face. Judging from their expressions, they had already known Suyu's identity. It was very likely that someone had informed on him in the past month. It was the soul-seizing palace. The true man of the purple cloud was silent for a long time, and he looked at Mo Tianxian. The soul-seizing palace? Suyu pondered. In fact, it was only a matter of time before the soul-seizing palace found out that Suyu, who was wanted by the Central Prefecture's king, was in the Red Blood Palace. Although Suyu had tried his best to avoid being discovered by the soul-seizing palace, how could the soul-seizing palace not investigate a genius who had risen to fame like a comet streaking across the blessed and heavenly lands? How difficult would it be to obtain a portrait of him? It was only a matter of time before his identity was exposed. The soul-seizing palace's exposure of Suyu was completely expected. However, Suyu was very clear that the soul-seizing palace's knowledge of Suyu was limited to the Central Prefecture's king's arrest warrant. Su Yu's real name and his origins in the foreign continent were completely unknown. The only person who knew, apart from the glittering jewel mortal fairy, was only one person. Gu Taishu. When did you find out? Su Yu asked again. Just now, Emo Tianxian answered, looking at Su Yu with sparkling eyes. Why? Is there a problem? Su Yu took a light breath and looked at the true man of the purple cloud. True man, you'd better go and see your favorite disciple, Gu Taishu. I hope he hasn't brought you any trouble. Why was Gu Taishu involved? The true man of the purple cloud was puzzled, but he dared not hesitate and left the secret chamber immediately. However, as soon as the secret chamber was opened, a gust of foul wind blew in. As far as the eye could see, the 9 mountains of the Purple Cloud Palace were littered with corpses. Not only the disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace, but the disciples, elders, and even the leaders of the various factions were all attacked, and there were many casualties. An isolation formation had been set up near the secret chamber they were in, so they didn't notice such a huge commotion outside. Puff! An elder of the Purple Cloud Palace fell from the 9th heaven and landed right in front of their secret chamber. True man, someone has betrayed us. As soon as he finished speaking, he fainted. Upon closer inspection, the vital energy in his body had all been solidified, and he couldn't circulate it. He had fainted after falling from the sky. There is only one person in the blessed and heavenly lands who could seal the circulation of vital energy. Gu Taishu. As expected, he had taken action. He had used the mouth of the soul-seizing palace to expose Su Yu's identity. If the effect was good, he could make the 3 of them kill each other. If not, he could let them enter the secret chamber for a discussion. Since Gu Taishu dared to expose Su Yu, he was naturally prepared for his relationship with the Central Prefecture's king to be exposed. He had taken this step, and the next step was, of course, to betray them. However, judging from the tragic scene, he couldn't be the only one who had betrayed them. Wei Bufan. Su Yu cast his gaze toward the sky and saw a gigantic puppet. The puppet's whole body was emitting a shocking all-creations mighty force. It was at least at the stage 3 all-creations level. It was exactly the same as the puppet that had almost destroyed the Purple Cloud secret realm. The person standing on the puppet was none other than the number 1 genius of the Soul-Seizing Palace, the son of the Soul-Seizing Palace's master, Wei Bufan. As he looked at the puppet, the true man of the Purple Cloud was filled with murderous intent. So it's him. They had been painstakingly searching for the real culprit behind the puppet, and he was really among them. However, the Soul-Seizing Palace's master and Gu Taishu had fled immediately after the secret chamber was opened, and there was no trace of them left. Ha ha ha! A bunch of insignificant trash dares to fight with my king? Go to hell! Wei Bufan laughed wildly. The puppet beneath his feet was like a meteorite, crashing into the ground with a loud bang. The all-creation's mighty force inside the puppet was expanding endlessly. It was about to self-destruct again. The self-destruction of an all-creation stage 3 was enough to destroy half of the Purple Cloud Palace. The surviving factions of the blessed and heavenly lands would also suffer heavy casualties. Umph! With a cold snort, Emo Tianxian disappeared from her spot. When she reappeared, she was already in front of the puppet. The true man of the Purple Cloud's expression froze. Palace Master Emo, be careful. Even for Emo Tianxian, it was extremely dangerous for her to withstand the force of the self-destruction. But Emo Tianxian took out the flying guillotine casually and drew a mysterious path in the air. The flying guillotine easily left a crack on the puppet's body, as if it was cutting tofu. Then, the crack expanded endlessly and split into 2 halves, brushing past Emo Tianxian's left and right sides. After being destroyed, the power of the puppet's self-destruction was greatly reduced, and it fell like an ordinary stone. Traitors die. Emo Tianxian stared coldly at Wei Bufan. The latter shuddered, his eyes filled with fear. Without another word, he tore a space talisman and broke through the void to escape. Before he left, he hurriedly shouted, "Take a look at the foot of the 9 peaks first. You can catch up with us regardless of whether they live or die." Mo Tianxian retracted her foot and turned to fly to the foot of a mountain. She immediately found a talisman that was about to explode. Its power was far inferior to the puppets, but it still had the power of all creation stage 1. On the peak, the people of various factions were injured and could not escape at all. She had no choice but to give up the chase and stop to break the talisman. The true man of the purple cloud, Su Yu, and the leaders of the various factions, as long as they were capable enough, stopped to break the talisman. This delay lasted for an hour, and the crisis of the talisman's explosion was finally resolved. The 9 talismans must have been left behind on purpose to delay the time of their pursuit. Judging from the way it was set up, it had been set up for at least half a month. This was a conspiracy that had been planned for a long time. The soul-seizing palace, which was under the jurisdiction of the Red Blood Palace, and the Purple Cloud Palace's #1 disciple, Gu Taishu, had betrayed them. They had used the mysterious and powerful puppet to inflict heavy casualties on the 18 blessed and Heavenly Land's elite disciples and the various factions. Calculate the casualties of all sides. The order was given, and the surviving wounded went to find their factions to reunite. Some were glad to find that their factions had suffered little damage, and they hugged each other happily. Some were sad to find that many familiar and close brothers and sisters were lying coldly on the ground. There were even some who couldn't find any of their former faction members. They had all been killed. The tragic casualties had reduced the overall strength of the 18 blessed and Heavenly Lands factions by at least 30%. The unprecedented loss caused the joy of the glittering Jewel Wonderland's successful trial to vanish, replaced by a gloomy mood. How many casualties did we suffer? Mo Tianxian calmly asked by Shanliang, the person doing the count. Out of more than 40 people, 20 are injured, a dozen are dead, and 1 is missing. Bai Shanliang's voice was deep and low. He had lost his usual humor and clenched his fists tightly. His right arm was broken and bleeding profusely. His hair was messy and his face was covered in blood. Gu Taishu. Once the soul-seizing palace rebelled, they treated the Red Blood Palace fiercely and suffered heavy casualties. It was even more tragic than the casualties of Purple Cloud Palace. Who is the missing person? Su Yu's heart skipped a beat as he swept his gaze over the gathered Red Blood Palace's students. Bai Shanliang was full of guilt, and he said in a low voice, "I didn't protect Wuxia well. She was taken away by Gu Taishu." Su Yu's face darkened. Gu Taishu. Su Yu, what are you trying to do? Mo Tianxian waved her sleeves, and in all creation's mighty force stopped Su Yu from leaving. Save her, Su Yu said. It's a trap. I know. That's why I have to go. Su Yu's face was indescribably calm, like the calm before the storm. He knew that Su Yu had a close relationship with Gongsun Wuxia, but he had only captured her and not killed her. If it wasn't a trap to lure Su Yu to rescue her, then what was it? It was precisely because he knew that he had to go. If he didn't go, Gongsun Wuxia's fate would be very ugly. He couldn't guarantee that Gu Taishu wouldn't do something heartless to take revenge on Su Yu. Mo Tianxian was silent. I'll go with you. Chapter 1052. Mo Tianxian did not stop him, because Su Yu was right. If she and the true man of the Purple Cloud chased after them, no one would be able to protect these people who were injured to varying degrees. If she was an enemy, she would definitely not let go of the opportunity to attack. Therefore, not only could they not leave, they had to be vigilant and protect them, waiting for their injuries to recover. I'm very sorry about what happened to Bing Wuxin. I couldn't protect her. Su Yu, who was standing on the wooden bird, tore open the void and said sadly, "Please inform Jian Wuxing that I will return her a daughter." Mo Tianxian nodded and said, "Tell her yourself." Su Yu nodded and steered the wooden bird into the void. The wooden bird shuttled through the void, covering tens of millions of miles in an instant. As for the location of Gu Taishu and the others, there was no need to search carefully at all. If the soul-seizing palace rebelled, the whole faction would have to migrate, and there would be a large number of them, numbering in the hundreds. And they had only one destination, the central continent region. The blessed and heavenly lands and the Middle Continent region were hundreds of millions of miles apart. Who knew how long it would take to fly? The only way was through spatial treasures and teleportation arrays. They were still unable to control a spatial artifact that could carry hundreds of people. The only way was to use the teleportation array. There was only one place that was closest to the teleportation portal. Tinya City. 2 hours. Suyu traversed more than half of the blessed and heavenly lands and appeared outside Tinya City. This place was the border between the blessed and heavenly lands and the heavenly knife region. Just as he tore through the void and landed nearby, Suyu could clearly feel the fluctuation of murderous intent, which was rapidly approaching from afar. When he raised his eyes and looked over, he saw a pitch-black puppet and several elders of the soul-seizing palace rushing over after sensing Suyu's aura. There was a figure standing on each of the puppet's shoulders. The young man was Wei Buffon. He looked like an 8th grade almighty, but he was actually a 9th grade almighty young temple master. The middle-aged man was the soul-seizing palace's palace master. His face was rosy, and he had a mustache, which made him seem exceptionally treacherous. As he looked at the silver-masked youth in front of him, the soul-seizing palace's palace master chuckled and said, "Gu Taishu's calculations are flawless. He really predicted that you would chase after us." Wei Buffon sneered. "I've heard from Gu Taishu that this person is very grateful. Even though he knows that it's a trap, he will still jump into it for the sake of someone important to him." As expected, Gu Taishu doesn't have the slightest understanding of him. Sentimental? With such a fatal weakness, it's a miracle that he could survive until now. The soul-seizing palace's master placed his hands behind his back, and a sinister look appeared on his treacherous face. Gu Taishu possesses the bloodline of the 9 spirits, so he will naturally be highly regarded by the Central Prefecture's king. However, our soul-seizing palace is just a small faction, so we will need a sufficient proof of allegiance. As a criminal wanted by the Central Prefecture's king, there was no better way to prove his loyalty than to bring back Suyu's head. Wei Buffon pursed his lips and sneered. "Speaking of which, I have to thank you for your appearance. Our soul-seizing palace has wanted to join the Central Prefecture's king's faction for many years, but we never had the chance to do so. Your appearance has given us a great opportunity." Over the years, the soul-seizing palace had always been indecisive. It wasn't that it didn't want to join the Central Prefecture's king's side immediately, but clearly knew that it was too insignificant, and it would be hard for the Central Prefecture's king to put it in an important position. Coupled with its special geographical location, it would be easy for it to become a victim of the conflict between the forces of the blessed and heavenly lands and the Central Prefecture. Therefore, he was reluctant to make up his mind. The appearance of the wanted criminal of the Central Prefecture's king gave them hope. With this proof of allegiance, the Central Prefecture's king would put him in an important position. Suyu was calm and composed, and his face was calm under the silver mask. "Suyuxian, accept your fate. We have prepared a top-notch puppet, and when it explodes, it won't be any weaker than a Stage 2 All Creations old monster. You have nowhere to run." The soul-seizing palace's master's expression turned solemn as he gave his orders. Suyu nodded and reached out to take off his silver mask. It was time to put an end to the feud between him and the soul-seizing palace. In another part of Tinya City, in a beautiful valley surrounded by green mountains, Gu Taishu clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the sky while wearing a mocking smile. "A bunch of fools. What use does my king have for you? Senior brother Gu, what do you plan to do with Suyuxian?" A beautiful figure stood quietly behind him. Her red lips were slightly pursed, and her eyes were filled with panic and anxiety. Gu Taishu's smile disappeared, and his face became ice-cold. He turned around and sneered. "Suyuxian? Shui, don't tell me that you really didn't discover Suyuxian's true identity." Lu Chuyi's delicate body trembled, and her pupils dilated. She looked nervous, and after hesitating for a moment, she murmured, "It's Inu." How could she not have realized that the old man who had risked his life to save her many times was very similar to the otherworldly youth Inu in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? Haha, he has a good impression of you, right? Gu Taishu's lips turned cold. Lu Chuyi gritted her teeth. No, no. You don't have to hide it. I can see the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion's feelings for you. Gu Taishu waved his hand, and a playful look appeared on his face. I don't blame you. You are so outstanding, and he is just a lowly martial artist from an otherworldly world. It's understandable that he would try to cling to you. Hearing that, Lu Chuyi's nervous mood eased a little. Then, senior brother, can you ask the soul-seizing palace to let him go? Even if Chuyi begged senior brother. Lu Chuyi begged, her heart filled with anxiety. However, Gu Taishu sneered. Those idiots from the soul-seizing palace want to deal with Inu? Why would I give such a token of allegiance to them so easily? Senior brother, you mean? Lu Chuyi was confused. Gu Taishu laughed coldly and said, You underestimate that ant from the otherworldly world. He is now an incredible person, and he is no longer what he used to be. Even the glittering, jewel-mortal fairy can't deal with him. The soul-seizing palace can't even harm a hair of his. He is so powerful. Lu Chuyi's beautiful face was filled with surprise and joy, but she quickly realized that something was wrong. If that is the case, why did senior brother send the soul-seizing palace to die? Gu Taishu's actions were definitely not groundless. Of course it's to let them hold Inu back and buy time for me. Gu Taishu's eyes revealed a playful look. Lu Chuyi said, To buy time to escape? Escape? There is no need for that. At this point, no one can deal with me. Gu Taishu exuded strong confidence. Then, senior brother, what do you mean by buying time? Looking into Gu Taishu's eyes, Lu Chuyi felt uncomfortable. Gu Taishu's eyes moved past Lu Chuyi and landed on a small, cute girl who was tied up. A hideous smile spread across his face. Of course it's to buy time and give Inu a gift that he will never forget. Senior brother, you want to kill Gongsun Wuxia? Lu Chuyi was shocked. Absolutely not. She has an extraordinary identity. If I kill her, I am afraid that it will cause unnecessary trouble and cause the wrath of the severed fairy cliff. Even the Central Prefecture's king would not want to become enemies with the severed fairy cliff for no reason, right? Her heart was beating wildly, and she was extremely nervous. For Gu Taishu's sake, she had followed him and betrayed the Purple Cloud Palace without any regret. Along the way, she had not hurt anyone. She did not want Gongsun Wuxia to be hurt, because she was Su Yu's important woman. According to the information she had gathered, the relationship between them was extraordinary. There were even rumors that Gongsun Wuxia was actually Su Yu's woman. If Gongsun Wuxia died, Inu would definitely hate her. Why do I want to kill her? Gu Taishu's fiery eyes looked Gongsun Wuxia up and down. Making it unforgettable for Inu doesn't necessarily mean the death of his beloved. Lu Chuyi's heart skipped a beat, and her face was filled with shame and indignation. Senior brother, you want to defile her. This method could indeed make Su Yu unforgettable for the rest of his life. In this world, there is nothing more painful than the rape of one's own woman by one's mortal enemy, right? Gu Taishu's viciousness made Lu Chuyi's heart tremble. Looking at Gu Taishu, Lu Chuyi's heart was filled with unfamiliarity. Was this still the eldest senior brother of the Purple Cloud Palace in her eyes? When had the eldest senior brother, who was upright, kind, and loved her so much, become the sinister, ruthless, and shameless person he was now? Even though Gu Taishu had betrayed her, Lu Chuyi firmly believed that Gu Taishu had his own reasons for doing so. It was just that she could not accept this scene. In her heart, Gu Taishu's majestic figure was constantly shaken. Don't make it sound so bad. When two people are in love, it's normal for them to have sex. After I become the son-in-law of the Severed Fairy Cliff Master, I can make the Severed Fairy Cliff ally with the Central Prefecture. I'll get a beautiful wife. My king will get an ally, and Inu will get an unforgettable, painful memory. 3 birds with 1 stone. Obviously, he had planned this scene carefully for a long time. Lu Chuyi's heart trembled again. He wanted to make love to Gongsun Wuxia and make her his wife. Senior brother, this will only anger the Severed Fairy Cliff Master, Lu Chuyi said calmly. Gu Taishu smiled and took out an ancient, tattered scroll and a dull pink elixir from his sleeve. Heavenly Heart Elixir. Lu Chuyi's face changed drastically, and she trembled with anger. Senior brother, you want to use this thing? This was something he had obtained during his exploration in the glittering jewel wonderland, and it came from an ancient relic. Together with the Heavenly Heart Elixir, the secret technique on the scroll could forcefully change the soul and memory of a living creature. If I changed the Inu and her memory to me, wouldn't everything be in order? Gu Taishu's eyes were filled with playfulness and excitement. Sleeping with Su Yu's woman and obtaining her heart was a pain that a man would have to endure for a lifetime. No! Lu Chuyi stopped Gu Taishu abruptly, her face filled with anger. If you're still my senior brother, please don't continue and don't disappoint me. Gu Taishu's face stiffened, and he slowly composed himself. He said calmly, "You dare stop me? I'm doing this for your own good." Lu Chuyi insisted. Gu Taishu's face turned cold. This was the first time Lu Chuyi had resisted him. "You can only rely on me now. There is no place for you in this vast world. Don't forget, you are also a traitor of the Purple Cloud Palace. The true man of the Purple Cloud will not let you off. I am a traitor, but I am not a shameless person. I still have my principles." Lu Chuyi did not know why she was so obsessed with Gongsun Wuxia, whom she did not even know. It would obviously anger Gu Taishu. No, it would be antagonizing him. "I'll say it again, get out of my way. I don't have much time, so don't ruin my plans." Gu Taishu's eyes shone with a cold light. Lu Chuyi's body stiffened, and she retreated slowly. Although she was afraid, she still tried clumsily to stop him. "Senior brother, don't do this. Revenge breeds revenge. When will it ever end? Get lost." Gu Taishu bellowed. He was extremely agitated. Lu Chuyi's resistance had enraged him. In his eyes, Lu Chuyi was his exclusive property, a virgin waiting to be plucked at any time. This feeling of losing control and losing her enraged him greatly. The vital energy in Gu Taishu's body surged and swept toward Lu Chuyi, sending her flying 100 feet away. Caught off guard, Lu Chuyi let out a muffled groan, and her body flew backward. As she flew backward, Lu Chuyi pointed her sword at the ground, changed her direction, and shot toward Gongsun Wuxia. She grabbed her with her slender hand and used it to fly away. She was about to escape with Gongsun Wuxia. "I'm sorry, senior brother. I can't watch you continue making mistakes." Lu Chuyi did not even look back. She suppressed the reluctance in her heart and fled resolutely. Gu Taishu was furious. Good. Even you betrayed me. Lu Chuyi, if that's the case, don't blame me for not knowing how to cherish you." Gu Taishu bellowed. A crack appeared between his brows, and a monstrous purple light shot out from it. The vital energy in Lu Chuyi's body suddenly froze where the light shone, and she fell with a cry. But she was prepared. She crushed a talisman, which was specially designed to restrain this kind of magical power. Her falling body regained its balance, and she continued to fly forward. But how could she compete with Gu Taishu's strength? After flying for only a few thousand feet, she felt an evil wind behind her. Lu Chuyi did not look back. She braced herself and hit back with her palm. Suddenly, a tremendous force came from her palm and went straight into her internal organs. Lu Chuyi could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Her body kept leaning forward and falling. Behind her, Gu Taishu did not bother to hide his hideous sneer. (*TCH), considering that you're cultivating the yin and yang qi, which will hinder your cultivation, I listened to the true man of the purple cloud and insisted on not touching you. I pity you so much, but you don't know what's good for you. How dare you betray me? If that's the case, don't blame me. Today, I'm going to make you and Gongsun Wuxia my women." With a loud roar, Gu Taishu grabbed at the two of them. But at that moment, the void split open. A huge wooden bird flew out of the crack. On the wooden bird, an old man with a weathered face and a sage-like demeanor stood with his hands clasped behind his back. With his right hand, he easily pulled the two women into his arms. Gu Taishu was startled by the sudden interruption. When he saw the face of a newcomer, he was shocked. "Inu, why is it you? Weren't you?" The newcomer was Su Yu. Trapped by the soul-seizing palace? Suyu's expression was placid. Yes, relying on a bunch of idiots who can't even tell the difference between a real body and a puppet. Gu Taishu, you're even more stupid than them. Outside Tianya City, the ghastly scene shocked all the martial artists in the city. They saw from afar that the sky and earth outside the city was covered by a sea of blood-red silk threads. In the sea of blood, all the elders of the soul-seizing palace, including the soul-seizing palace master and the young master, had their bodies pierced by the blood threads. Their flesh and essence were being absorbed, and they could not struggle. The soul-seizing palace master was shocked. His face was flushed, and he cried out with great difficulty, You're not Su Yuxian." In the center of the sea of blood was a handsome young man. His complexion was inhumanly silver white. At that moment, he had a look of enjoyment on his face. When he heard what was said, he opened his evil eyes and said with a faint smile, "I never said I was the master. I am, come to think of it, the master seems to have given me a name. I think I'm called Xiaobai." "That's right, it's Xiaobai." When he finished speaking, Xiaobai laughed softly. All the people of the soul-seizing palace were instantly sucked dry, leaving only their skins behind. Chapter 10:53. In the valley, Gu Taishu's expression darkened. "How did you know that the soul-seizing palace's people were the only ones in the trap? Not me." Su Yu's white hair fluttered in the wind, his expression indifferent. As a treacherous person, is it that hard to predict when you are hiding behind the scenes? Based on Su Yu's understanding of Gu Taishu's character, he was definitely not an upright person. Moreover, Gu Taishu clearly knew Su Yu's power, yet he still dared to set up a trap and wait for Su Yu personally. Although Su Yu was anxious to rescue Gongsun Wuxia, he had always kept a clear head. When he noticed that something was amiss, he immediately changed his strategy and sent the newly crafted silver puppet, Whitey, to carry his mask and pretend to be him. As for Su Yu, with the help of the ancient bronze tree man, he sensed Gongsun Wuxia's location and found this place. It seemed that he was not too late. Anger appeared in Gu Taishu's eyes, and he said angrily, "Then how did you find me? Don't tell me you know how to calculate." Su Yu looked at Gongsun Wuxia affectionately. "There's no one here that I can't find." He was in Tianya City, and the desolate, evil jungle was nearby. He was a good friend of the ancient bronze tree man, and he wanted to borrow their power to find a girl in the vicinity who possessed the life springs water. Before going to the glittering jewel wonderland, Su Yu had given Gongsun Wuxia a bottle of the spring of life to protect her life and protect herself. She hadn't used it, and it kept every drop of it. That was how he could sense her specific location. How presumptuous! Gu Taishu shouted angrily, but he suppressed his urge to attack. This wasn't the right time. Firstly, he was no match for Su Yu. Secondly, Lu Chui was still in his hands. Su Yu just smiled and didn't say anything. He then imbued powerful vital energy into the two women's bodies, awakening Gongsun Wuxia and healing Lu Chui's injuries. Lu Chui was in Su Yu's arms. Her whole body was stiff, and she couldn't move at all. This feeling was too familiar. That day, hadn't he been pressed under this body and turned into a woman? It really was Silver Feather. Raising her head, Lu Chui scrutinized that old face. She felt an indescribable, complicated feeling. "Long time no see, Senior Green," Su Yu said calmly. His body slowly emitted the power of time, and his old body was flowing backward at a speed visible to the naked eye. His wrinkled skin took on a new look, as smooth and round as jade. His weathered white hair gradually turned into a resplendent silver. In the span of a breath, he returned from an old man to a young man in his prime. You." Lu Chui covered her red lips in disbelief. "Yes, it was that face. Wow, Brother Su Yu, you are so handsome." Gongsun Wuxia, who had just woken up, witnessed Su Yu's transformation with her own eyes. Her eyes shone brightly as she tilted her head and leaned on his shoulder intimately. She was like a little rich woman who had found a treasure. As expected of my future husband, I'm so satisfied." Su Yu couldn't help but feel helpless in front of this little devil who didn't have any sense of crisis. "Both of you take a rest. while I deal with Gu Taishu first." Suyu put down the two of them and cast his gaze at Gu Taishu. Gu Taishu's expression was calm. "Inu, release Lu Chuyi if you dare. Hold her hostage and distract me so that we can fight again. This method is too despicable. Which eye of yours saw that I was holding her hostage?" Suyu clasped his hands behind his back. Lu Chuyi was unmoved. She looked at Gu Taishu from afar, her heart filled with indescribable disappointment. Gu Taishu, whose nature had been exposed, had completely overturned his image in her heart. "Senior brother Gu, repent and be saved. You can go now. I won't go with you anymore." How could she dare to continue following a man who was unscrupulous and could rape her at any time? "Lu Chuyi." Gu Taishu glared at her furiously. "You are my woman, and there is no place for you in this world. Who could take you in other than me? Rely on him? He is from the blessed and heavenly lands, and he will bring you back to the true man of the purple cloud sooner or later. If you return me now, you still have a chance." Lu Chuyi felt a stab of pain in her heart, and regret grew in her heart. Perhaps following Gu Taishu out of the faction at all costs had been a huge mistake. Not only had she failed to win Gu Taishu's respect, but she had also become his hostage. However, without waiting for Lu Chuyi to speak, Suyu said indifferently after a moment of silence, "You keep saying that she is your woman, but only because you are her fiancé? What a joke. If my fiancé doesn't count, do you, an ant from the other world, count?" Gu Taishu laughed in response. Suyu was silent for a moment and pulled Lu Chuyi into his arms again. Lu Chuyi resisted subconsciously, but she couldn't withstand Suyu's brute force. Half of her body was buried in his broad chest, and she felt shy all of a sudden. "I am her first man. Tell me, does she count as my woman?" Boom! Gu Taishu seemed to hear countless thunderbolts roaring in his mind. His face was stiff and gradually turned ashen. In the end, it was so ferocious that he almost went mad. "Nonsense. Chuyi is as pure as ice and as pure as jade, and she has been practicing the asterisk, 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 asterisk. She will never be with any man." However, halfway through his sentence, Gu Taishu couldn't continue, because he knew that in recent years, Lu Chuyi had made little progress in her asterisk, 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 asterisk. The anger of being deceived, the pain of being betrayed by the one he loved, and the humiliation of being betrayed by a woman turned into a towering rage. His sharp eyes were full of shock, anger, and madness. Lu Chuyi, this is true. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that his fiancée, who was so obedient to him, had betrayed him physically. Lu Chuyi lay in Suyu's arms, not daring to look into Gu Taishu's eyes. After a long time, she mustered up her courage and nodded. "Yes, I became his woman in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, but that was just a coincidence. At that time, I didn't think of betraying senior brother Gu." "Shut up, you shameless woman." Gu Taishu's pupils were dilated, and he was panting heavily. He was in a completely deranged state. He wanted to rape Suyu's woman and give him unforgettable pain, but instead, he learned the shocking truth. His fiancée, who he couldn't bear to lay his hands on for a long time, had unexpectedly been taken by someone else. Such a great humiliation was enough for the proud Gu Taishu to remember for the rest of his life. "Ah, what a big cuckold!" The little demoness mocked him at the right time. She was very skilled at adding fuel to the fire. The number one genius of the blessed and heavenly lands, the loyal and beautiful fiancée, has turned to Suyu and pledged her life to him. TSK, this shocking gossip will definitely fetch a good price in Tinya City. Gongsun Wuxia flashed her standard demon-like smile. Gu Taishu was furious. "Shut up. Today, none of you will leave here alive." The only way to wash away the humiliation was to silence them. "Oh, I'm so scared. I'm so scared." Gongsun Wuxia patted her chest, looking terrified. Gu Taishu didn't look at her anymore. His eyes were fixed on Suyu. "Inu, you forced me to do this. I want to let you live for a few more months, and when I achieve the 9 spirits body, I'll send you on your way. But you're courting death." "You?" Suyu said indifferently. In front of the demon-devouring emperor, Gu Taishu had no power to fight back, and the demon-devouring emperor had died at Su Yu's hands. Did you really think that what I showed in the glittering jewel wonderland was my full strength? Gu Taishu calmed down slowly. A powerful aura was emitted from his body, emitting faint purple light from inside out. When the purple light appeared, it quickly dyed the sky in all directions a deep purple. In the purple world, the aura of the outside world was completely concealed. It was as if the space covered in purple had formed a world of its own. Leave quickly. He's using the divine decree. Lu Qi urged with a panicked look on her face. It wasn't difficult to see the fear in her eyes. The true man of the purple cloud is deeply trapped in his divine decree, and it's difficult for him to escape. He even suffered some serious injuries. Lu Qi said solemnly. His attainments of the divine path have reached the peak of perfection, and he's about to reach the realm of the void transformation divine decree. He's invincible. She believed in Su Yu's ability to fight against the mortal fairies, but Lu Qi still had lingering fears about the terror of the peak pure divine decree. You want to leave? It's too late. Gu Taishu's black hair fluttered in the wind, emitting an invincible aura. With a loud shout, purple light erupted abruptly, completely dyeing the surrounding space in a deep purple glow. Gu Taishu, who was emitting purple light, was like a deity of the purple world, dominating it. Freeze! Gu Taishu uttered a single word. All of a sudden, a mysterious power, or to be precise, an existence similar to the rules, descended upon Su Yu and the others, causing their bodies to stiffen and be unable to move. This was Gu Taishu's divine decree, punishing them on behalf of the heavens. In the purple world, he was the heavens. His will was the will of the heavens. Gu Taishu looked over indifferently, looking down at Su Yu like a deity. Do you know how lowly you are? My divine Tao is not something you can reach. Taking a step forward, Gu Taishu teleported in front of the three of them. Like a victor, he smiled contemptuously. Those who fight me will only end up reduced to ashes. However, Gu Taishu wasn't in a hurry to strike. Instead, with a vengeful mentality, he laughed coldly. It would be too easy for you to die just like that. I'll let you have a taste of your woman being toyed with. Open your eyes wide and watch carefully. Don't miss the show. With a long laugh, Gu Taishu fixed his lustful eyes on Gongsun Wuxia. While grabbing Gongsun Wuxia with one hand, he also grabbed Lu Qi with the other hand. You too, although you're not a virgin, it's still good to liven things up. However, just as his palms touched the shoulders of the two people, suddenly, without warning, a silver sword light slashed toward him. Gu Taishu was caught off guard and subconsciously blocked it with his hands. His arms suddenly turned cold, followed by a piercing pain. His arms were easily cut off. However, the moment his arms blocked the attack gave him time to react. As the master of the purple world, he immediately teleported to a distance. Looking up, he cried out in surprise. Inyu, you can actually move. In the distance, Su Yu was holding a silver sword in his hand. A wisp of residual silver sword energy reverberated in the purple world. He had clearly immobilized him. So how could he move? You said you were immobilized, so I had to be immobilized? So you said indifferently. Chapter 1054. Hellfire. With a low growl, the entire purple world was set ablaze with raging flames. However, around Su Yu, the hellfire was automatically extinguished when it approached. Heavenly thunder. Heaven and earth roared, and terrifying bolts of divine thunder fell. However, each bolt automatically avoided where Su Yu was. Reincarnation. Death. Annihilation. Gu Taishu continued to growl. What shocked him was that Su Yu was not affected by the rules of the purple world at all and was unharmed. Under his protection, even the two women were safe and sound. What the hell is going on with you? Gu Taishu took a deep breath. He realized that he could not see through this barbarian ant of the past at all. Su Yu flicked the blade lightly and said lightly, In the glittering jewel wonderland, you are not the only one who reserved your strength. Upon hearing that, Gu Taishu's pupils constricted. In the battle against the demon-devouring emperor and the glittering jewel-mortal fairy, he had not only displayed his strength, but also held back. For the first time, facing Su Yu, Gu Taishu felt like he was facing an abyss. Even so, not being affected by the peak of the pure divine decree cannot be explained by strength. I don't believe that you have found the weakness of my divine decree, Gu Taishu said coldly. The only explanation was that Su Yu had found the weakness of the divine decree and found a way to counter it. Su Yu smiled leisurely. Weakness? Why don't you think that I have restrained your divine decree? The only way to restrain the divine decree was to have a stronger divine decree. What a joke. In the entire Jiuzhou continent, there are countless geniuses. Apart from me, Gu Taishu, how many others can comprehend the heavenly divine decree? Restrained? Do you think you are worthy? Gu Taishu had unparalleled confidence in the divine decree, so he did not explain. His body gradually released a majestic atmosphere. It was formless and formless, but everyone could feel that there seemed to be a shocking wave suddenly rising at the level of the soul. The purple world shook violently, shaken by the majestic atmosphere. Gu Taishu's sneer froze completely. After a long while, he gasped. The peak of the pure divine decree. Impossible. That was the only word in his mind. Su Yu, an ant from the barbarian world, could not have comprehended the peak of the pure divine decree. He could comprehend it because of a special bloodline. Did Su Yu have a similar bloodline? Not only is it a peak pure divine decree, but it is also a divine decree that opposes yours. Su Yu raised his head to look at the sky. In the purple sky, a giant eye appeared, as well as a giant hand that covered the sky. The giant hand swept out. Everywhere it passed, the purple world was crushed, leaving nothing behind. This hand was like the hand of the heavens, capable of destroying all restraints. This was also Su Yu's divine decree defied. Breaking through all obstacles, even the heavens couldn't stop him. Gu Taishu's divine path was to replace the heavens. Su Yu's divine path was to go against the heavens. Gu Taishu's divine decree might be able to suppress others, but it couldn't suppress Su Yu. One hand and one eye stretched across the sky, extremely shocking. It was as if the formless heavens were hidden in the dark, great Tao, occasionally revealing themselves. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yu's eyes were filled with coldness, and the silver sword in his hand slashed across the air with a destructive force. The heavenly orchid silver bamboo sword could destroy everything. Gu Taishu's expression changed drastically. He didn't even have time to recover his arms as he dodged in a hurry. However, right at that moment, Su Yu's left eye overflowed with purple light, and he uttered a word, "Freeze." Gu Taishu was instantly frozen in time, unable to move. The silver light swept past, and Gu Taishu's body was split into two. A shivering soul phantom escaped from the broken body. With fear and resentment, it ran away in a panic. However, before it could get far, a wine-red glow shot from behind, and it was wrapped by a space power, rolling it back. Su Yu was prepared to destroy Gu Taishu's body and soul in one go. However, just as Gu Taishu was wrapped by the space power and transported back, a faint, cold snort sounded like thunder falling from the nine heavens, shaking Su Yu's whole body. Gongsun Wuxie and Lu Chuyi were shaken to the point that their bodies were in turmoil. Their blood was boiling, and their faces were flushed. At such a young age, you're already so cruel and merciless. Not only do you want to destroy the body, but you also want to exterminate the soul. Swish! As soon as the voice fell, a hand suddenly reached out from the void, casually dispersing the space power that had wrapped around Gu Taishu and releasing him. Gu Taishu, who had survived the calamity and was only left with a soul body, complained angrily, "Why did you only attack now?" Creak! From the crack, an average-looking, plump middle-aged man walked out. He was dignified without being angry, and he had the temperament of someone who had been in a superior position for a long time. The plump middle-aged man glanced at Gu Taishu indifferently. "I was only ordered to protect your life, not to be your bodyguard." "You. Good. Don't say anything else. Just kill this man quickly." He is a far greater threat than expected. Gu Taishu pointed at Su Yu, and his soul emitted shocking resentment, as well as unprecedented fear. He, who had died once, could no longer deny Su Yu's horror. The plump middle-aged man looked at Su Yu indifferently and raised his chin slightly. No wonder you are a wanted criminal by my king. You have some skills. The purple-red light in Su Yu's eyes dissipated, and he looked at the man from afar as if he was not surprised by his appearance. Gu Taishu seems to have some weight in the eyes of the Central Prefecture's king. He sent the Heavenly Knife Region Master to meet him personally. This man's cultivation was far above the true man of the Purple Cloud. Even Xue Di and the 5 Golden Light Guards were far inferior to him. Based on his intuition, among all the all-creation strong men he had met, only Mo Tianxian could beat him. Therefore, his identity was not difficult to guess. A person with such a cultivation must have a high status, and the person who protected Gu Taishu was most likely the Central Prefecture's king's subordinate. The closest person who could come meet him was the Region Master of the Heavenly Knife Region, which was next to Tianyao City. The Heavenly Knife Region Master. Lu Chuyi was shocked, and her heart sank. She finally understood why Gu Taishu had said that no one could do anything to him here. It turned out that there was a powerful Region Master to meet him. You are quite clever, the Heavenly Knife Region Master said indifferently, looking at Su Yu as if he was looking at an ant. Well, come with me. My king wants to see you, the Heavenly Knife Region Master said indifferently. He glanced at Gong Sun Wuxia and Lu Chuyi out of the corner of his eye, and said indifferently, As for you, you are worthless trash. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his sleeves lightly. Suddenly, a majestic all-creation's mighty force pressed down with a loud bang. Even Su Yu was startled by this feeling. As expected, the Heavenly Knife Region Master was completely different from the ordinary all-creation's old monsters. Apart from Mo Tianxian, no all-creation strong man had ever made him feel so powerful. In the blink of an eye, the wooden bird beneath Su Yu's feet moved, grabbed one person on each side, and disappeared into the void. A treasure that can travel through the void. The Heavenly Knife Region Master exclaimed softly when his attack missed. Then, he shook his head with a sneer. You overestimate yourself. He did not chase after them, but pointed his right finger in a certain direction. All of a sudden, the void, which was millions of miles away, split open, and a wooden bird fell out of it. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. Using a void treasure in front of such a powerful all-creation's old monster had little effect. Chapter 1055. Creek. 1,000 feet in front of them, the void was torn apart. The Heavenly Knife Region Master and Gu Taishu's soul stepped out from it with his hands behind his back. Using the void energy in front of an all-creation strong man is like showing off before an expert. The Heavenly Knife Region Master said calmly, Since you don't want to see my king, go ahead. I'll let the 3 of you die together. I'll grant you your wish. When he finished speaking, he waved his hand. The space around Su Yu froze and was sealed by the all-creation's mighty force. He couldn't use his space magic anymore, so he had to face the Heavenly Knife Region Master. Creak. Su Yu didn't wait for the Heavenly Knife Region Master's next move. He waved his sword backhandedly. The long silver sword drew a mysterious silver trajectory in the void. At the same time, a giant hand appeared in the sky and swept across the vast earth. The sealed space was crushed. The peak of the pure, divine decree. The Heavenly Knife Region Master's indifferent face finally showed a hint of shock. He looked at Su Yu again in disbelief and exclaimed, It's rare to see a genius of the divine path in this generation. And now there's a second one. No wonder you could kill so many challengers of the Heavenly Knife Region. You do have some skills. As he spoke, he looked at the silver trajectory and narrowed his eyes with a hint of greed. Hey, you surprised me again. The number 1 divine bamboo in Jiuzhou, the Heavenly Orchid Silver Bamboo. It's the best one over 1,000 years old. It's such a waste to give this sword to you. Knowing that the Heavenly Orchid Silver Bamboo sword could cut anything, the Heavenly Knife Region Master didn't face it head-on. He simply tore the void apart and dodged it. When he reappeared, he was 1,000 feet away from Suyu. He put down his hand behind his back and said calmly, "It seems I need to be a little more serious when dealing with you." Splash! The sound of the waves suddenly passed through the clouds. It was as if a sea had appeared in the sky. Soon, a distant coastline appeared behind the heavenly knife region master. Endless waves were rolling wildly, destroying everything along the way. It was a terrifying scene. The sound of the waves surged like the rumbling of thunder. It shook the clouds to the point that they scattered. Spiritual energy went berserk, and the entire sky trembled. The waves were getting closer and closer. They were obviously illusions of nothingness, but they were more powerful than real waves. No one doubted the power of the waves. Even the Blood Emperor and the 5 Golden Light Guards could only choose to escape in such a situation. Domain of manifestation. Suyu was surprised. The so-called domain was an imposing aura created by powerful all-creation old monsters who had reached the all-creation realm. It was a kind of power that existed between the tangible and the intangible. It could be strong or weak. Martial artists called it domain. The all-creation's old monsters were in the realm, and they were almost invincible. They could use the realm to destroy their enemies without suffering any damage. Moreover, the realm could even block the attacks of their opponents, making them exceptionally difficult to deal with. An all-creation's old monster without a domain was no match for an all-creation's old monster with a domain, even if the former's cultivation was much higher than the latter's. However, the creation of a domain was extremely difficult. It was not something that could be created just by having a high cultivation level. Instead, one had to find a power that was compatible with one's own martial path to succeed. It was a test of a martial artist's shocking comprehension ability. 90% of all creation's old monsters had no fate with the domain. Only a small portion of them could reach the domain level. The Heavenly Knife Region Master was one of the few realm experts. Witnessing the all-creation realm with his own eyes, Suyu was quite shocked. This feeling was similar to the divine path. Although it was not as mysterious and ethereal as the divine path, the indistinct power was unusually strong. A glint of fighting intent appeared in Suyu's eyes. Although the enemy's power was great, he had the protection of the divine path. With a shift of his thoughts, the giant eye that had turned into a bright moon opened abruptly, and a part of the stormy waves was annihilated. The giant heavenly hand slammed down from the sky, and the stormy waves splashed in all directions. The Heavenly Knife Region Master was slightly startled and said in a low voice, "The strength of the divine path's martial artists is indeed indescribable. A mere 9th grade fairy can shake the all-creation realm. Let me see how you're going to resist my boundless power." Boom! The stormy waves sensed the will of the Heavenly Knife Region Master, and their power doubled. Visible to the naked eye, the formless stormy waves doubled in size and crashed down with a force that could topple the sky. The heavenly eye, the heavenly hand, and the stormy waves clashed endlessly in the clouds of the 9 heavens. The mountains collapsed, the earth cracked, and the rivers flowed backward in a 10,000-mile radius. The clouds in the sky collapsed, and the void was torn apart. The violent power of space was wreaking havoc in all directions. Suyu's peak pure divine decree was activated to the extreme. The heavenly hand and the heavenly eye struggled to block the stormy waves, freezing them 10,000 miles away and making it difficult for them to invade Suyu's body. The Heavenly Knife Region Master was a little annoyed. "You are just a junior. So what if you're a divine path? I will suppress you immediately." With a loud roar, the endless stormy waves erupted again, as if the Milky Way was destroying the world, pouring down endlessly. Although the heavenly hand and the heavenly eye had blocked most of them, some of the stormy waves finally broke through the defense line and headed straight for Suyu. At that moment, the golden heavenly eye suddenly shone with golden light, and its outline was more than twice as large as before. The destructive power it released was doubled, and the stormy waves that broke through the defense line vanished in a breath's time. Suyu's face contained a hint of delight. As it collided with the extreme realm, the heavenly eye underwent change. Its size was twice as large as before, and its power was also doubled. After thinking about it carefully, Suyu suddenly realized that the heavenly eye was, after all, a manifestation of Suyu's will. It represented Suyu's indomitable and defiant will. The stronger the opponent, the stronger it became. The prolonged confrontation with the enemy's domain would naturally continue to strengthen. This discovery made Suyu's eyes light up. A giant door above the divine path had been opened. The divine path had infinite possibilities. After failing to suppress Suyu repeatedly, the heavenly knife region master became more and more shocked. A dignified all-creations realm old monster was fighting a ninth-grade fairy for a long time. Although Suyu was fighting him with the divine path that he was best at, he was also fighting with the strongest realm. With such a huge gap in cultivation, they were actually tied. Young man, I have to admit that I have underestimated your strength. The heavenly knife region master took a light breath and said solemnly, but this is the end. Boom, boom. Deep in the stormy waves, thunder seemed to be descending, and it kept approaching. The awe-inspiring power made Suyu's face become much more serious. Deep in the stormy waves, a silvery white stormy wave, like a giant wall connecting heaven and earth, was pushing forward. The previous stormy waves were like a mountain compared to Mount Tai. The difference between the two was more than 10 times. From the beginning to the end, the Heavenly Knife Region Master had only released less than 1/10 of his realm. I will use my strongest realm to bury you, as a tribute to the genius of the Divine Path, the Heavenly Knife Region Master said indifferently. Without any hesitation, the endless power of the realm descended. After holding on for a while, the Heavenly Hand and the Heavenly Eye finally couldn't bear the great power that surpassed their limits and were annihilated. The giant wall, which was as large as heaven and earth, suddenly came crashing down. However, right at this moment, the giant wall came to an abrupt stop. No matter how great its momentum was, it couldn't move a step forward. Looking closely, a crack appeared under the giant wall, and a silvery white finger, densely covered with wooden patterns, stretched out from it. It was this inconspicuous finger, which seemed to have great divine power, that froze the giant wall, making it unable to move. The Heavenly Knife Region Master's face changed abruptly. Looking into the distance, he saw a silvery white elder in a plain robe, whose skin was exposed, showing wooden patterns. The elder's face was expressionless as he stepped out of the void calmly. His tone was emotionless. The stormy wave realm is quite powerful. His fingertips were shining with green light spots. Immediately after, the green specks of light suddenly exploded billions of times, instantly swallowing the entire wall that was as large as heaven and earth. The realm was broken, and the Heavenly Knife Region Master was affected. He groaned, and his face turned red. His eyes were full of horror. Who are you? Apart from the 9 great prefectures kings, there was someone who could break his realm power with one move. Moreover, the opponent was also using a realm. The two of them had just exchanged blows, and the opponent's realm power was far superior to his. It was a difference in quality that could not be overcome. In this world, there was such a powerful all-creation realm expert who was unknown. Wait, are you from? The Heavenly Knife Region Master couldn't help but look into the distant sky. He could vaguely see a vague forest. That was the famous forbidden area of the blessed and heavenly lands, the desolate, evil jungle. It was said that even all-creation old monsters couldn't come out alive after entering the mysterious forbidden area. The only thing he knew was that there were tree men living in the forbidden area, which had never appeared in the Jojo continent. I'm Imu. The Silver Man was Imu from the desolate, evil jungle. Since Suyu had asked him to help him find Gongsun Wuxia's location, how could he not leave behind a backup plan? Asking Imu to help him secretly was Suyu's extra plan. As a strong mortal fairy in the past, the realm was an outdated method for Imu. It was like a toy at his fingertips. How could the Heavenly Knife Region Master defeat him? Let's go. The Heavenly Knife Region Master was very decisive. He grabbed Gu Taishu's soul and took away Gu Taishu's split body at the same time. Then, he tore the void apart and escaped immediately. Gu Taishu was not willing to give up while escaping. Are we going to let Inu go just like that? Once we let this guy go, it's like letting a tiger return to the mountain. There will be endless troubles in the future. Puff! Suddenly, the Heavenly Knife Region Master spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale and weary. His expression was extremely ugly and solemn. He said fiercely, "What do you know?" When that person attacked, there was a gust of mortal fairy strength. His real body might have surpassed a mortal fairy. If we don't escape now, when will we? Gu Taishu was speechless. Then he clenched his fist tightly. He didn't expect that he also had a strong mortal fairy backing him up. Crack! On the other side, a hair-thin crack appeared on Inmu's finger. Looking down at the crack, Inmu sighed. I don't have much time left. My body has been degraded for too long. It's rotten beyond belief. That strike just now was my limit. He had been haunted by the deathly energy for many years. Although he was purified by the tree goddess, who had awakened by chance, the decay of his body couldn't be cured. If he couldn't return to the mortal fairy's realm, Inmu would pass away soon. Chapter 1056. Only the tree goddess could save Inmu. Inmu's expressionless face did not change, but his tone became much lighter. You're a friend of the ancient bronze tree folk. It's only right that I help you. The enemy might not have gone far. Let's take shelter in the ancient bronze tree men's tribe for the time being, Inmu suggested. Suyu did not refuse. He had used his divine decree continuously just now and had consumed a lot of his mental energy. 3 days later, in a quiet valley in the ancient bronze tree men's tribe, Suyu was full of energy. My divine decree has indeed been tempered. Suyu's face lit up with delight as he confirmed it again and again. If he could continue to fight against the domain, his divine decree would definitely be further tempered, and the benefits would be endless. The unexpected discovery gave Suyu many hints. In the future, the cultivation of the divine Tao might not be so simple. As he pondered this, Suyu took out a black book of life, as well as a memory jade pendant. The former was the Book of Yin of Mog Dao, and the latter was the inscribed contents of the Book of Yang of Mog Dao. Yin and Yang. These were the insights and experiences left behind by Mog Dao, a former genius of the divine way. Now, Suyu finally had the time to read them carefully. Xiao Bai, if anyone comes to visit, tell them that I'm cultivating, Suyu said. The silver puppet, who was standing behind him respectfully, nodded, then flew into the sky and locked onto the surroundings. The silver puppet was, of course, a puppet that was fused with a puppet heart. The puppet, which was originally only at the level of Almighty, was forcibly raised to the level of stage 3 all creations by the puppet heart and became a great help. Most miraculous of all, the puppet heart gave the puppet the ability to cultivate on its own, allowing it to grow stronger by devouring the flesh and blood of living beings. Suyu collected his thoughts and took out a drop of the honey of 100 flowers. At the same time, his left eye shone with a purple light as he entered the state of time acceleration by 500 times. Mog Dao's divine Yin-Yang book was completely opened by Suyu. His life's experiences, thoughts, and understanding of the divine path were all presented before Suyu's eyes like a naked virgin. Suyu was sometimes amazed, sometimes confused, sometimes enlightened, sometimes happy, and sometimes in pain. All kinds of expressions flashed across his face, reflecting the changes in his inner thoughts. What he did not know was that the divine image behind him, with its black hair fluttering in the wind, stood majestically behind Suyu once again. It looked into the distance with a profound gaze. The appearance of the divine form alarmed Inmu. His wooden expression changed. Godly Dharma idol. This is a sign that he is about to reach the void transformation divine decree. However, why is this god so unfamiliar? Inmu sank into deep thought. In the acceleration of time and space, Suyu's enlightenment lasted for a whole year. However, Only half a day had passed in the outside world. Under the installation of the honey of 100 flowers, 10 times the power of perception, Suyu had comprehended most of Mo Jidao's divine decree. When he finished reading, his eyes were still immersed in Mo Jidao's spirit. As expected of a genius in the eternal path of gods, even the strong mortal fairies are afraid of him. However, in terms of comprehension of the divine path, Gu Taishu and I are far inferior to him. Even most of the strong mortal fairies are not as good as him. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the first person in the divine path after the deities. From Mo Jidao's divine book, so you learn that Mo Jidao was only a step away from peeping into the divine path and becoming a deity. However, due to the limitations of his physical body, he could only live for 100 years and was about to pass away. Because of this, he didn't hesitate to take the risk to enter the glittering jewel wonderland to obtain opportunities and fortunes. Unfortunately, he didn't obtain any in the end and died of old age. Before his death, he deliberately came to the bookyard. After his death, he intended to pass on his life's experience and comprehension as a legacy to his descendants. What a pity for a genius of the divine path. Suyu sighed silently. If this person hadn't been limited by his physical body, he might have become a deity. Mo Jidao's divine path gave Suyu many hints and confirmed many of his conjectures about the divine path. Closing the book, the mark of the book that had been floating above Suyu's head was rotating slowly, emitting shocking waves. The disaster of books was imminent. In theory, the 5 great disasters of the glittering jewel wonderland had been forcibly abolished by Suyu, the master of the martial tower. However, only his own disaster of books was not deliberately obliterated. Because it was an opportunity, the waves dispersed, and in the clear sky above Suyu's head, a black and white stone gate appeared. One black and one white, standing opposite each other. Black was yin, and white was yang. The yin and yang gates ran through the cycle of reincarnation. This was Mo Jidao's divine path. Unyielding to the current situation, he wanted to connect the yin and yang with the body of a mortal and control the cycle of reincarnation. Suyu's goal was to use Mo Jidao's yin and yang divine decree to integrate everything he had learned. Suyu had learned the divine path of the peak pure divine decree, the primordial martial path of the elixir and fire as one, as well as many martial techniques, such as the 9 dragons demon subduing art, the divine sun palm, and the 3 bloodline powers bestowed by the divine 9-dragon cauldron: time, space, and soul. Combining the divine path with the primordial martial path, the acquired martial path, and the bloodline was what Suyu had learned. Because Mo Jidao's yin and yang divine path was prepared for this. Unfortunately, he passed away before he could become a deity, obtain a complete physical body, and cultivate the many paths. Gazing at the yin and yang gates, Suyu took a deep breath and offered his divine decree, the heavenly eye and the heavenly hand. At the same time, he offered the power of time contained in his left eye. The heavenly eye and the power of time attacked the heavenly eye together. The heavenly eye opened, accepting both at the same time. But soon, the yang gate on the other side opened, spitting out the crumbling heavenly eye and the scattered power of time. They failed to merge successfully. Suyu's whole body trembled, and blood flowed from his left eye. This was the function of the yin and yang gates. The complementarity of yin and yang was the key to the balance of all things. After the 2 forces entered the heavenly eye, the yin and yang stone gates would coordinate the 2 to promote the fusion of yin and yang. If the coordination failed, it would be spat out from the yang gate. The power of time is too weak, and the heavenly eye was too powerful in the past. Suyu quickly analyzed the reason for the failure of the fusion and tried again. This time, he failed again and was spat out by the yang gate. The power of time is still too weak. Still a little bit off, still a tiny bit off. This was a long process of adjustment that required patience and perseverance. Half a month later, a gust of the power of time and the heavenly eye were injected into the heavenly eye. After a long wait, the yang gate slowly opened. From within, a giant purple eye appeared. Unlike the golden heavenly eye of the past, after the coordination of the yin and yang stone gates and the integration of the power of time, the heavenly eye turned a deep purple. When the eye opened, the world that radiated tens of millions of miles fell into the control of the power of time. In the past, so you could only use the power of time face to face. But now, the range of radiation covered tens of millions of miles. At the same time, the enhancement of the heavenly eye increased the effect of the power of time. The time that it could freeze the enemy rose from the initial 3 breaths to 10 breaths. So you could not help but be delighted at such a huge improvement. The power of the divine path and the power of the bloodline was indeed abnormal. It was not as simple as 1 plus 1, but an increase of several times. This step was the right one. Suyu wiped the blood flowing from his left eye, his weary face beaming with relief and joy. Next, Suyu struck while the iron was hot, merging the divine path with many other paths. He did not know that he had embarked on a path that very few people would take. A month passed, 2 months passed, 3 months passed, half a year had passed, and Suyu was immersed in an unprecedented state of training. The continent had also undergone tremendous changes in the past 6 months. The aftermath of the glittering jewel wonderland did not dissipate from the continent for a long time. Many of the news that had spread had shaken the continent several times. The fall of the demon-devouring emperor was accompanied by the birth of another genius overlord that shook the continent. Su Yuxian, the unknown genius who had become famous overnight in Jiuzhou, had crushed the demon-devouring emperor, a top heaven ruler who was famous for his cruelty, with absolute force. His fall had led to the rise of Su Yuxian. In the current continent, apart from Zhang Wushuang, no one questioned his position as the second overlord. If this news was not enough to surprise the martial artists of the continent, another shocking secret that had been widely spread recently made him famous in Jiuzhou. A few years ago, the ruthless demonic man who hunted down the Blood Emperor and killed the 5 Golden Light Guards was none other than this student from the outside sanctum who had hidden in the Red Blood Palace, Su Yuxian, whose real name was Su Yu. In an instant, he stood out as a junior and became a towering figure who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the all-creation's strong men of the older generation. That unattainable achievement became a hot topic of discussion among the martial artists of Jiuzhou. Some said that he was the illegitimate son of a certain mortal fairy who had secretly trained his skills to be unparalleled. Some said that he was actually a guardian that Mo Tianxian had recruited by sacrificing her body to help her fight against the Central Prefecture. Others said that he actually came from the Fairy Mountain in the forbidden area of Jiuzhou. Only there could such a hidden overlord talent emerge. Now, Su Yu's name had shaken the world. He had replaced Gu Taishu as the #1 person in the blessed and heavenly lands. As for why he was not the #1 person in the Central Prefecture, it was because the Central Prefecture had another destined emperor, Zhang Wushuang. If Su Yu was placed in any prefecture, he could compete for the honor of being the #1 expert in the prefecture. Only in the Central Prefecture, it was absolutely impossible. He was a born emperor, superior to all the heaven rulers of the current era. However, what shocked the Jiuzhou continent even more was undoubtedly the true identity of the glittering jewel mortal fairy. The guardian deity of 10,000 years was actually a demon. The trillions of people in the Jiuzhou continent could not accept this truth. Even though the news came from the holy faction of the demonic path in the extreme north, the great Oriental family in the eastern continent, and the Central Prefecture in the central continent, they could not be persuaded to believe this ignorant rumor. It was not until the royal bee state of the southern continent was destroyed overnight that the people of the Jiuzhou continent finally woke up from a dream. The royal bee state was one of the 9 great prefectures. Among them, the Holy Spirit Royal Beast faction was the most prominent. With a strong mortal fairy and 10 demonic beasts that were about to reach the level of mortal fairy, they became supreme venerables. However, it was such a great prefecture that controlled billions of demonic beasts, but within half a year, it had been reduced to a ghostly prison. Half a year ago, a white-haired, purple-lipped, cold, and beautiful woman appeared in front of the Holy Spirit royal beast faction. 2 hours later, the woman walked down the mountain gate. There was no one left alive in the faction. From the disciples of the outside sanctum to the elders and demonic beasts, their hearts were all hollowed out and their souls were destroyed. The mortal fairy faction master sat motionlessly on the divine, sovereign throne. His eyes were wide open, but his heart was nowhere to be seen. Even his soul was nowhere to be found. Chapter 10:57. According to the cultivators who were fortunate enough to check on the sect master, the sect master did not even have the chance to resist before his heart was dug out and his soul eaten. In 2 hours, the Holy Spirit school of imperial beasts, which represented the 9 prefectures and the 9 pillars that supported the heavens, was reduced to ashes. Then, a day later, the second-ranked sect was annihilated, and not a single chicken or dog was spared. They had the same characteristics, which was that their hearts and souls were missing. Then, all the sects and forces in the royal beast state were annihilated one by one, and they died in exactly the same way. By the time the news reached the other 8 provinces, the royal beast state had already become a ghost town. 99% of the forces were annihilated. The remaining forces also fled the royal beast state. They didn't know who was doing this, but they knew that there was an unimaginably terrifying existence devouring the hearts and souls of the entire province's martial artists. Then, in a small sect that had been destroyed, a small cultivator who had luckily escaped told them what he had seen. She had white hair, black eyes, and purple lips. She looked exactly like the glittering jewel mortal fairy described in the glittering jewel wonderland. At this moment, the martial artists of 9 regions finally broke their illusion and admitted the cruel fact. The guardian god that they had worshipped for 10,000 years was actually a demon, and an incomparably ferocious one at that. At this moment, she was wantonly devouring the lives of the warriors of the 9 states and ravaging the royal beast state. The destruction of the royal beast state had finally made all the prefecture's kings restless. Led by the 2 great mortal fairies of the great Oriental family, they united the forces of the 5 states and rushed to the royal beast state to suppress the glittering jewel mortal fairy. It was said that an unprecedented battle had taken place in the royal beast state that had caused the world to change. The spiritual energy of the entire royal beast state had been scattered, and the veins of the earth had been shattered. It had become a wasteland without spiritual energy. Without thousands of years of recuperation, the royal beast state would become a barren land. That battle was undoubtedly a battle between a group of mortal fairies. The outcome of the war also caused the creatures of the 9 regions to feel extremely uneasy, and they fell into a deep panic. Of the 6 mortal fairies in the 5 prefectures, 1 was killed, 2 were annihilated, and 3 were severely injured. The prefecture's king of the Huitian prefecture was eaten by the glittering jewel mortal fairy on the spot. The bodies of the 2 prefecture kings were destroyed, leaving only their souls to escape. 3 mortal fairies were severely injured. However, the result was that the glittering jewel mortal fairy escaped with severe injuries, and her whereabouts were unknown. They were so confident in this crusade that they didn't hesitate to destroy an entire province. But in exchange, this was the result. Endless panic spread through every region. No one knew which province this cannibal demon was hiding in or which province he would attack first. The only thing that slightly reassured the human race of 9 regions was the other 3 prefectures' kings, who did not participate in the battle, also received news. In the lifeless sword state, Jian Wuxing pulled out her sword and left the lifeless sword state. She was looking for the glittering jewel mortal fairy. The chief disciple of the supreme heavenly demon faction, Han Fei, had spread the word on behalf of her master that the demon faction had joined the holy war and were irreconcilable enemies with the glittering jewel mortal fairy. The last and most anticipated prefecture king of the 9 prefectures, the central prefecture's king, also sent out news. He had already left seclusion. As the only disciple of the former legendary prefecture's king, Shunichen, the central prefecture's king was the center of attention. Even though he had been in secluded cultivation for the past 100 years, Shunichun's invincibility had made those who admired Shunichun place their hopes on the Central Prefecture's king. They believed that Shunichun's disciple would not disappoint them. In the imperial city of the region of Central Continent, in front of a splendid secret room, two figures stood respectfully. One was wearing a golden armor, exuding a disdainful emperor's aura. The other was wearing a purple dress, with a pretty face and an innocent look. The two of them waited quietly until the stone door of the secret room opened slowly. A figure in a royal robe appeared clearly. "Greetings, master." The woman in the purple dress bowed. The young man in the golden armor didn't move at all, showing no respect. Stage 3 All Creations. Shin'er has made great progress. The man in the royal robe walked out and looked at the woman in the purple dress with a smile. The woman in the purple dress was Han Xian. The man in the royal robe was the famous Central Prefecture's king. "If there is nothing else, I will leave." The young man in the golden armor turned around expressionlessly and strode away. The Central Prefecture's king smiled kindly and said, "Go ahead and give some advice to your third junior sister. She is quite talented. I don't need any advice." Zhang Wushuang walked away without looking back. Han Xian frowned slightly. The third junior sister was a disciple that the Central Prefecture's king suddenly accepted a year before he went into isolation. She didn't know where he found her. It was very sudden to accept her as a disciple. During the year of isolation, Zhang Wushuang was in charge of teaching her. Han Xian had only seen her a few times because she was reflecting on her mistakes. She seemed to be a very quiet girl, but she had excellent qualifications, and her cultivation was almost catching up with her. It was said that she had a special bloodline, which Zhang Wushuang had praised. Han Xian knew Zhang Wushuang's character very well. For so many years, he had never praised her, but this third junior sister had been praised after a year of getting along with her. It was obvious that the power of her bloodline was extraordinary. "Tell me everything that happened during the year of isolation." Han Xian nodded. After hearing about the glittering jewel mortal fairy, she just smiled slightly, not surprised or surprised. However, when she heard about Su Yu's rising reputation, her eyes lit up. Han Xian saw this strange look. Also, the Heavenly Knife region and the Blessed and Heavenly Lands are at war again. The reason is that the Heavenly Knife region covered up the traitor Gu Taishu, who killed many of their people, Han Xian said. The Central Prefecture's king nodded. "Oh, there's Gu Taishu now. His body has been reconstructed, and his injuries have healed. He is trying to break through to the All Creations level to complete the body of 9 spirits. He has been in isolation for 3 months, and the result will be known in a few days. Well, how is your cultivation of the Jade Maiden's heavenly frost art?" The Central Prefecture's king didn't care about this at all. He changed the topic and asked about her cultivation. Han Xian answered honestly, "I'm only 1 comprehension away from the top class, but I haven't been able to break through for a long time. Maybe I need more experience." Hearing this, the Central Prefecture's king's eyes shone with surprise, but he looked very calm. He said with relief, "In that case, I will send you to the Heavenly Knife region to help. The Heavenly Knife region master will arrange for you. Fight with the Blessed and Heavenly Lands." Han Xian was a little reluctant. After all, she had lived there for a period of time. Fighting is the best way to sharpen yourself. "Go. He will find a way to protect you." Han Xian nodded and left with the order. Her delicate eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Although she had her back to the Central Prefecture's king, she could vaguely feel that the way the Central Prefecture's king looked at her was very strange. She had a question in her heart that she couldn't get rid of for a long time. It seemed that her master was very concerned about her cultivation of the Jade Maiden's heavenly frost art, even more so than her cultivation. She had once asked her master about it, and the answer she got was that this cultivation technique was very special, and it would be very beneficial to her once it was cultivated to the top class. As a pure and innocent girl, she didn't think too much about it, but she would occasionally feel strange about the way her master looked at her. After watching Han Xian leave, the Central Prefecture's king suddenly stood up and bowed to a dark corner. "Greetings, master. Well, I will hide here for the time being." A hoarse and indifferent voice came from the darkness. In the valley, Suyu had been cultivating for a whole 6 months. In the past 6 months, he had gone through countless yin and yang harmonization before he had finally integrated everything he had learned. The divine path, the innate martial path, the acquired martial path, and the bloodline path had all been integrated into one. It could be said that Suyu had been reborn. Slowly opening his eyes, Suyu looked at the fading yin and yang gates in the sky and said gratefully, "Thank you very much." When he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and the yin and yang gates disappeared. The disaster of books had been eliminated. "Congratulations, Master." Xiaobai flew down and stood respectfully. Suyu stood up. "What's going on in the Jojo continent recently?" During the long-term isolation, Xiaobai not only shouldered the responsibility of guarding, but also was responsible for inquiring about the movements of the outside world. Xiaobai told him the recent major events in detail. Suyu wasn't surprised that the glittering jewel mortal fairy had slaughtered the royal beast prefecture. Suyu wasn't surprised that the 5 great prefectures' kings and 6 great mortal fairies had fought against the glittering jewel mortal fairy. Only one piece of news made him solemn. The central prefecture's king had come out of isolation. He was the only one who knew that Suyu had the divine 9-dragon cauldron, and his desire for it had never been extinguished. Last time, he swore that once he came out of isolation, he would hunt down Suyu personally. Now that he had come out of isolation, it wouldn't be long before he started to act. Yun Yazi had reminded him that the strength of the central prefecture's king was at the top of the continent. So you didn't have absolute confidence in dealing with him once he targeted him. The most important thing was that the 3-9 ordeals were coming. During the 6 months of isolation, the pressure in the unseen world was getting stronger and stronger. The aura of the ordeals was faintly discernible. In a few days, the ordeals were coming. The arrival of the 3-9 ordeals at this time was undoubtedly one disaster after another. The desolate, evil jungle couldn't protect him. Instead, it would attract the ordeals and the central prefecture's king, bringing unnecessary casualties to the ancient bronze tree men. He needed to choose a suitable place to complete the first ordeal, the ordeal. After finding Inmu, Suyu stated his intention of leaving. "Is the ordeal coming soon?" Inmu said, "I've only seen the 3-9 ordeals 2 or 3 times in my life, so I don't know much about them. I only know that most of them die in the second ordeal, the ordeal of people. As for the third ordeal, the ordeal of relationships, no one can survive it. You need to be fully prepared. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Emu. I know what to do." So you cupped his fists. "I'll take my leave now. All right, let me send you out. That ghost retreated just 2 months ago. He might have concealed his aura and is lying in ambush outside." Emu was obviously referring to the Heavenly Knife Region Master. Suyu was startled. He seemed to have realized something. His eyes flickered with a shrewd light. "You mean the person who fought with you that day was a ghost?" Emu's face was stupefied. "Yes, although he concealed himself very well, the ghost aura in his body can't be mistaken. Of course, it could also be a treasure that carries the ghost aura with it. The ghost." Suyu was deep in thought. He had once obtained some information. The all creations of the ghost race from 100 years ago, the Bloodbone Great Soldier, had a great power, and many uninterested human influences had defected to him. Could he be referring to the Heavenly Knife region? As the ghost race, which was the common enemy of the human race 100 years ago, everyone wanted to kill. The fact that the Heavenly Knife region master defected to the ghost race was shocking. If this news spread, the whole world would be shocked. Chapter 1058. "Brother Su, I'll go with you." Gongsun Wuxie volunteered. "I'll go and ask my father to kill that old bastard." Suyu shook his head slightly. "Wuxie, you and Chuyi should stay in the desolate evil jungle for the time being. The outside world is full of danger, and all the influential factions could be the glittering jewel mortal fairy's next target. This is the only place that the glittering jewel mortal fairy is afraid of. Others might not be able to tell, but Linlang should be able to sense that there was a sleeping god in this place. If there was no need, Linlang would not choose to provoke this place. Thank you for your kind intentions. I plan on returning to the Purple Cloud Palace." Lu Chi's expression was calm. After half a year, she had thought it through. The faction has suffered heavy casualties, and I am guilty. Now that the faction is in danger, I want to go back and redeem myself. As a traitor, she could not shirk the responsibility for the tragic state of the Purple Cloud Palace. Now that the Purple Cloud Palace was lacking in talents, they were in need of manpower. I'm afraid that if you go back, you won't get a chance to atone for your crimes. Instead, you'll become a sacrifice to appease the public's anger, Suyu said. The Purple Cloud Palace, the Red Blood Palace, and the 18 blessed and heavenly lands had suffered terrible casualties. The entire region was seething with resentment and was in urgent need of a vent. Lu Chuyi had followed Gu Taishu and rebelled. Once she returned, she would probably become the target of their anger. Even if the Purple Cloud Palace could forgive Lu Chuyi, the forces of the entire region would not. It would be difficult to offend the public. Moreover, the continent was in a precarious situation, and they urgently needed to calm the hearts of the people. It would be difficult for the Purple Cloud Palace to protect her. The best outcome would be to endure many cruel punishments. Lu Chuyi's idea of atoning for her crimes was too simple. Lu Chuyi's face darkened. If I die, so be it. Gu Taishu is right. There is no place for me in this vast world. After severing her feelings for Gu Taishu, she was like duckweed in the river, helpless and helpless. All right, take care of yourself. So you didn't try to dissuade him. Gongsun Wuxia, who was standing at the side, opened her mouth. In her opinion, this woman would never return. Why didn't Suyu stop her? In the next moment, Gongsun Wuxia withdrew her thoughts. Goodbye. Lu Chuyi took a deep look at Suyu, her pretty face filled with complex emotions. This might be the last time she would ever see him. However, all of a sudden, Suyu's eyes rippled with a strange ripple, and Lu Chuyi immediately became absent-minded. I'm sorry, I can't watch you die. Suyu sighed and took out a palm-sized ancient tower. It was a miniature version of the Marshall Tower. The bronze light flickered, and the Marshall Tower took Lu Chuyi into the 100th story of the Marshall Tower. Although following him was dangerous, it was still more dangerous than returning to the Purple Cloud Palace. Wow, big brother Su, I didn't expect you to have such a hobby. Gongsun Wuxia hugged her chest and pretended to be afraid, but her eyes were full of playfulness. I have candles, a whip, and Suyu sighed and said, stay here and don't run around. I'll be back soon. After he spoke, he rode the wooden bird and traveled through the void to Tianya City. He then appeared in the Red Blood Palace's office in Tianya City. Just as he appeared, several astonishing auras gushed out from the depths of the pavilion. Who goes there? A loud shout rang out like thunder, as if facing a great enemy. Suyu waved his sleeves, easily dispelling the incoming aura. He was slightly surprised. What a powerful aura. It's about to break through to the Wanxiang level, isn't it? Was there such a person in the office? Soon, two figures flew out, one after the other. The former was an old man dressed in red-scaled armor. He was extremely majestic, and he was staring at Suyu with extreme vigilance. His eyes were extremely sharp. As soon as the figure appeared, it pounced on Suyu with raging flames all over its body. Suyu was also surprised that he was ready to fight without saying a word. In the face of the raging flames, Suyu flicked his fingers, and a whiff of silver sword energy emerged from his fingers, drawing a mysterious trajectory. The raging flames that were rushing toward him were immediately extinguished by the sword energy. The remnants of the sword energy slashed toward the scaly old man, causing his face to turn grave. It took him 3 consecutive moves to barely dispel the power of the sword energy. When he retreated to the door of the pavilion, the scaly old man was horrified. The sword energy was extremely strange. It could cut through anything, and there was no way to defend against it. It could only erase its power. A whiff of sword energy from the other party's fingers had such terrible power. If he really attacked, how powerful would he be? Based on his experience, such power could only be achieved by an all-creations old monster. The scaly old man's face turned grave as he thought of the fact that he had torn the void and descended. Senior, may I ask why you have invaded the Red Blood Palace's office? Senior, Suyu stroked his chin. Why haven't I seen you before? Suyu asked. The scaly old man was startled, and he said hesitantly, I'm Xiao Han, the general manager of the Red Blood Palace stationed in Tianya City. May I ask who you are, Master? Master Su. The figure that had just arrived, the slightly plump old man's face changed drastically when he recognized Suyu's face. His expression changed from solemn to wild joy. He ran out madly and bowed to Suyu. I'm Wu Ling, the deputy general manager of the Red Blood Palace stationed in Tianya City. Greetings, Master Su. The scaly old man was stunned. Master Su? Which Master Su? He was extremely puzzled. Who was Master Su? However, when he realized who he was, his pupils contracted violently, and his body trembled. He hurriedly bowed to Suyu. Welcome, Master Su. Suyu flicked his sleeves, and an invisible force held the two of them back. He said with a faint smile, Oh, it's the general manager. No wonder I've never seen you before. The last time I came here to report on my duties, you were in isolation when I was appointed as the shopkeeper of the Tonglin Elixir store. We didn't have the chance to meet. Get up, all of you. There's no need to be so courteous. I'm still a student of the Red Blood Palace, and I still have to call you seniors. Xiao Han and Wu Ling stood up, trembling with fear. They looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Suyu dared to call them seniors, but did they have the right to accept it? He was the ruthless, demonic man who destroyed Xue Di, slaughtered the 5 golden light guards, killed the demon-devouring emperor, and monopolized the glittering jewel mortal fairy. As almighty, they could only look up to him. Wu Ling was the most emotional one. The student with average cultivation back then had turned out to be the ferocious figure of the continent, the ruthless, demonic man who was renowned throughout the world. Recalling the past, he couldn't help but wipe away his cold sweat. You're both injured? What happened? Suyu's eyes were shrewd and sharp. With a casual glance, he discovered that both of them had internal injuries, especially the head general manager Xiao Han, whose injuries had almost reached his dantian. Xiao Han was taken aback. Master Su, weren't you appointed by the faction to come and help us? You've been out alone recently. Did something big happen here? Suyu asked. Xiao Han smiled bitterly. He invited Suyu into the garret and explained in detail. It turns out that 2 months ago, the Blessed and Heavenly Lands and the Heavenly Knife region went to war again. The cause was that the Heavenly Knife region was hiding the traitor Gu Taishu. The location of the battle was in the old city of Tianya City. Suyu couldn't help but frown. After the betrayal, our region suffered many casualties. This is the time for us to recuperate. Why would we choose to go to war with the outside world at this time? There must be some other reason behind this, right? Unless Mo Tianxian and the true man of the purple cloud were out of their minds, they would never go to war with the glittering jewel mortal fairy outside and with internal injuries. That's right. The destruction of the royal bee state in half a year has shaken the Jiuzhou continent and shaken the hearts of the people. Who would choose to engage in unnecessary internal strife at this time? The Heavenly Knife region announced to the outside world that we initiated the war and started it, but we never took the initiative to attack. The fuse that triggered this war was the annihilation of a team of guards at the border of the Heavenly Knife region. There were traces of the Red Blood Palace at the scene. Because it happened in front of the eyes of so many martial artists, the Heavenly Knife region couldn't hide it. For the sake of their reputation, even if they didn't want to go to war, they were forced to fight. Hence, the scene happened. Suyu's eyes narrowed. Did you find out the identity of the mysterious person who annihilated the guards? No. We only know that they were all extremely strong. Treasures and magical powers were ineffective against them, and they killed their way through. The captain of the border guards was a 9th-grade, almighty strong man, but he was torn apart by one of the mysterious people in a single encounter. Suyu frowned slightly. Why did it sound like he knew these mysterious people? But no matter what, deliberately provoking a war at this critical moment of Jiuzhou's situation was deserving of death. What's the situation on the battlefield now? Suyu asked. Xiao Han smiled bitterly. What do we do? Both sides started the war in haste, and the casualties were very heavy. However, it was also because of the haste that there was no time to mobilize the army. The casualties were limited to our Tianya city and the border guards of the Heavenly Knife region. A few days ago, after a head-on battle, both sides made a temporary truce. But the next time it officially starts, the situation will be much more dangerous. The army of the Heavenly Knife region is already on the way. 8 of the 10 deputy region masters are here, and our allied forces will need some time. Xiaohan's mood was a little solemn. But we won't back down. We will defend Tianya City, even if we have to die. After understanding the situation, Suyu stood up slowly after a moment of silence. Just as well, I'm preparing to go to the Heavenly Knife City myself. It'll be better if I can resolve the crisis along the way. Xiaohan and Wu Ling were shocked. Absolutely not. The Heavenly Knife City is full of experts. It's a dangerous place. Master Su, you mustn't take the risk. Suyu smiled calmly. It's precisely the dangerous place that I have to enter. If I don't do this, how can I intimidate the Heavenly Knife region? The two of them were speechless. They thought to themselves that he was indeed the ruthless demonic man who shocked the continent. His temperament and courage were things that ordinary people couldn't learn. If Master Su must go, you might as well contact the secret agents that the Red Blood Palace planted in the Heavenly Knife City. They might be able to provide you with a lot of help, Xiaohan said after some thought. Secret agents? Suyu's heart skipped a beat. He had another purpose for going to the Heavenly Knife City, which was to bring back the alluring cabinet mistress, Shiwilian. Now that the world was in chaos, danger lurked everywhere. War had broken out again, and the secret agents would be in much more danger if they stayed in the Heavenly Knife region. It was time to evacuate them and bring her and the rest of the secret agents back along the way. Do you have a list of the secret agents? Suyu asked. Xiaohan shook his head. To ensure that the identity of the secret agents isn't leaked, the fewer people who know about their identities, the better. In the faction, only the leader knows the list, and we only know their contact details. All right, give it to me. The method of contacting the secret agents was very simple. So simple that it made Suyu blush with shame. Prostitution. The secret agents of the Red Blood Palace ran a brothel in the Heavenly Knife City, and the secret agents were hidden there. To contact them, they had to disguise themselves as clients. If they could utter some code words, they could meet the secret agents of the Red Blood Palace. After getting the code words from Xiaohan, Suyu immediately set off for the Heavenly Knife City. Chapter 1059. After landing, he put on the silver mask again and changed his outfit. With the resources of the glittering jewel wonderland, they had all kinds of protective armor and magical clothing. A moment later, a mysterious young man dressed in luxurious clothes with an imposing appearance appeared. His silver hair fluttered in the wind, and his luxurious clothes were neat and tidy. Impressively, he was an outstanding young master of the chaotic world. With a smile on his face, Suyu entered the city and came to the front of a pavilion of the Heaven Immortal Tower. In front of the pavilion, a young woman in the prime of her youth who wore a veil that was difficult to conceal her body was gorgeously dressed, and they were like balls of multicolored auspicious clouds that were exceptionally eye-catching. Ah, this, sir, the maidens of our Heaven Immortal Tower are all extremely beautiful. Sir, why don't you come and have some fun? Young master, Bao has returned from a rewarding journey. A more mature woman leaned her hot and voluptuous body against Suyu's. Her eyes were misty as she teased him incessantly. However, she was looking at Suyu's clothes out of the corner of her eye. As a person of the mortal world, her eyesight was extraordinary. She was a little surprised to find that Suyu's clothes were actually expensive treasures. Her eyes became even brighter, and her body began to twist and turn as she teased Suyu. Full load is a good word. Suyu laughed and said, however, my requirements are very high. I don't want a height of 6 feet and 6 inches, a weight of 66, and an age of 16. Do you have any sincere ladies? The eyes of the mature woman flashed with a bright light. She spoke in a flirtatious manner. Yo, listen to what young master is saying. What type of woman does our Heaven Immortal Tower not have? Why don't we just go in and take a look? Suyu swiftly entered. Have Xiao Tao come and receive the guest. The mature woman entered and instructed a pimp. Sister Feng, little Tao is receiving a guest, the pimp said awkwardly. This is an important guest. Sister Feng's jade-like eyes narrowed. The pimp understood and immediately went to fetch them. Young master, please follow me. He was led into an elegantly decorated room. Both the inside and outside of the room were top-notch restrictions that could isolate external movements. When they were having fun, they didn't need to worry about being heard by others. The interior decoration was also quite luxurious. Sister Yu led her inside and left with a charming smile. Not long after, a young girl in the prime of her youth, wearing a light yellow dress, walked in leisurely. He was 6 feet 6 inches tall, weighed 66 pounds, and was also 16 years old. Xiao Tao greets young master. Xiao Tao smiled shyly. Her smile was elegant and refined, causing one's eyes to light up. One couldn't help but feel tender affection for her. However, Suyu knew that Lady Hongshan was good at disguising herself, so he was unmoved. He said lightly, "How much are you asking for?" Xiao Tao was taken aback. She paused for a moment before saying, 9,000 crystals per night. Okay, I will give you 99,000 crystals, Suyu said. This was the secret signal between him and the Red Blood Palace's secret agents. The other party said 9,000 crystal stones, while he said 99,000, using this strange conversation to prove their identities. Xiao Tao was shocked. She was so happy that she threw herself into Suyu's embrace. From now on, I belong to you. This sentence was also a secret code that secret agents would say. All right, although it felt a little weird. Suyu pushed away the beautiful girl in his arms and said, "My identity has already been verified, so you don't have to be so serious, do you?" Xiao Tao stared blankly for a moment, then said in astonishment, "What identity verification? This servant is your Xiao Tao Hong. Young master, please pay the crystal stones. From now on, I'm yours." Wait a minute. What's going on? This was not the script. Suyu immediately stood up and said solemnly, "Someone else." Xiao Tao's face stiffened. She angrily tidied up her clothes, then slammed the door and left, full of complaints. I thought I met a rich, naive man. I offered 9,000, but he offered me 99,000. In the end, he's just an insensitive blockhead. He actually drove me away. Outside the door, Xiao Tao muttered to Sister Yu. The blue veins on Suyu's forehead throbbed. Although there was a seal, how could it block his eyes and ears? It turned out that Xiao Tao was a real Lady Hongshan. What about the real secret agent? Creak. The door was pushed open, and Sister Yu pushed the door open with a smile. Behind her was another woman, who was 6 feet 6 inches tall, weighed 66 pounds, and was 16 years old. Again, Suyu was suspicious. Young master, please enjoy. These are some dishes. I think you have a lot to talk about. Sister Yu closed the door, her words full of provocation. Suyu understood Sister Yu's meaning. There's a lot to talk about, and the woman in front of him. So, the woman just now was just testing whether Suyu was from the Red Blood Palace, and the woman in front of him was the real secret agent. This method could also ensure the safety of the real secret agent. How much? Suyu looked at her. 9,000. I'll pay 99,000. From now on, I belong to you. The woman was very cold, her face expressionless. You should smile and throw yourself into my arms. Why do I have to do this? Because of my professionalism. The woman was very cold. She sat opposite Suyu and stared at him expressionlessly. Speak, what do you want from us? She really was a secret agent. Suyu did not respond. Ask Shiwelian to come see me. You can tell me. The woman was still cold. Suyu was silent, not saying a word. After sitting quietly for a while, the woman said, Shiwelian has gone out to do something and will only be back in half a day. If you need help from us secret agents, I can give you some help. As she spoke, the woman casually took a sip of the wine in front of her. Only half a day? Suyu sighed and subconsciously took a sip. The woman blinked and asked again, What do you want to tell us? Suyu put down the wine glass and said lightly, Don't you think that asking too many questions will expose you? The woman's expression changed slightly, but she quickly hid it and said with a poker face, As a secret agent, it is indeed easy to expose myself. I was careless. I mean, as a member of the Heavenly Knife region, you have exposed too much, Su said calmly as he looked up. The woman sneered. You've drunk too much. Su did not speak. He opened his right palm, and a black grain appeared on his palm. If I'm not mistaken, what was added to this wine should be the famous drunken dreams of death dust. There was poison in the wine. Swish! The woman suddenly stood up, and the door behind her opened abruptly. Sister Yu rushed into the room. Rushing in with her were 8 black-clothed martial artists with long knives in their hands. They were murderous and surrounded Su Yu in a semicircle. Shaking his palm, he shook off all the black grain and said, "It seems that the secret agent of the Red Blood Palace in the Heavenly Knife region has been removed." Clap! Clap! Sister Yu clapped her hands and smiled approvingly. What did you find out that this place was under the control of the Heavenly Knife region? I knew when I entered the room. Su Yu shrugged and pointed under the bed. Even the bloodstains have not been cleaned. You must have been in a hurry. It has only been a few days since you removed this place. Sister Yu looked over and found a trace of blood in the cracks on the ground deep under the bed. The blood was so fine that it was even thinner than a strand of hair. If Su Yu had not pointed it out, she would not have noticed it. Your Excellency is so meticulous. I admire you. Sister Yu was secretly surprised, but her face was still as charming as a flower, not revealing her inner feelings. That's right. 3 days ago, we pulled out the headquarters of the Red Blood Palace's spies and planted our own people here to set up an ambush. We lured the Red Blood Palace's people who came to contact us without knowing the situation, and we got their secrets from them. Recently, there have been frequent battles between the two sides. Tianya City must have sent many people to find the secret agents and obtain information about Tianya City. But now it seemed that the people who came to contact had most likely fallen into this trap. I'm very curious. You knew it was a trap, but you did not choose to escape. Instead, you chose to stay. Are you so confident in yourself? Sister Yu asked calmly. The people behind her all had murderous intentions. Su Yu took a sip of the poison wine with 2 fingers. He was safe and sound, which made Sister Yu's eyelids twitch. What kind of monster was this? This was the second cup of poison wine. With the power of drunk, dreaming, and dying dust, even a 5th grade almighty would fall victim to it. Because if you hadn't come, who would I have asked about the whereabouts of the secret agents you captured? Su Yu wiped the wine off his lips and smiled. Sister Yu's heart trembled. She had the illusion that she could not see through the man in front of her. Could this person be a master of the Red Blood Palace? But were a few mere secret agents worth the master of the Red Blood Palace going deep into the heart of the Heavenly Knife region to rescue them? Reason told Sister Yu that logic did not make sense. The only thing that made sense was that this person had discovered that he had fallen into a trap and was pretending to be calm in an attempt to escape. But what if the other party was very strong? After weighing it over and over again, Sister Yu changed her strategy and put on a charming smile again. You see, we don't really care about your life. If you're willing to cooperate, we can drink and have fun while you tell us what we want to know. If we are satisfied, Xiao Ling will be yours tonight. She is a virgin, and her cold and arrogant personality is very suitable for toying with. Why don't you tell me where they are, and I can spare your lives? So you said straightforwardly. With a wave of his big sleeves, the door of the secret room suddenly closed. The negotiation was broken. Sister Yu's beautiful eyes turned cold, and she said softly, "Do it." However, before the 8 black-clothed people could make a move, they all fell straight down. Sister Yu looked at them in surprise. The 8 of them had fallen into a state of absent-mindedness. You are proficient in illusion techniques. Sister Yu's face changed, and without thinking, she threw out a talisman that contained the power of a 5th grade almighty. Once it exploded, the entire Heaven Immortal Tower would be blown away. However, what made Sister Yu gasp was that Su Yu just stretched out his index and middle fingers and casually caught the talisman that was about to explode. At the same time, he rubbed his fingers together and the talisman was crushed into ashes. Such a horrifying scene made Sister Yu's breathing become heavy. To be able to destroy the explosion of a 5th grade almighty talisman with just a wave of his hand. This This was definitely a late-stage almighty who surpassed the 5th grade almighty. It's not good to alarm the others, Suyu said lightly. With a wave of his sleeve, a wave of space energy swept her and Xiao Ling to the table in front of him at the same time and sat them down. Tell me, where are the spies you captured? Suyu asked expressionlessly. Xiao Ling was already trembling all over and could not speak. Sister Yu was a little calmer, but she was not much better. Her throat seemed to be blocked by something. You, how do you know that they must be alive? Because they are still useful to us. They were waiting here to capture the people who came to contact the Red Blood Palace. They would definitely need these spies to determine the identity and status of the captured people in the Red Blood Palace. Chapter 1060. We can make a deal. Sister Yu forced herself to remain calm. Before she could finish, Suyu interrupted her. There is only one deal you can make, life or death. Don't doubt the cruelty of the Red Blood Palace to the people of the Heavenly Knife region. Sister Yu's delicate body trembled, and she struggled for a while. Then, she said bitterly, I know where they are, but there are so many experts there that I can't let them out. Besides, if we tell you the location, we will be punished to death. It's still death, so it's better to die in your hands now. Maybe the region master will reward my relatives. Suyu was surprised. In the chaos of war, small figures who were being driven around could never show their own will. They were just drifting with the tide and had nowhere to hide. Puff! Suyu raised his finger and pointed. The 8 assassins in black clothes died at the same time and were turned into a mass of dust by the flames. Now, there is no 4th person here except us. As for them, they were killed by a passing demon, Suyu said coldly. Sister Yu was secretly shocked. This person sounded very young, but his methods were really ruthless. He killed without hesitation and regarded human life as nothing more than grass. However, it was because they were dead that Sister Yu's mind became active. No one knew that a contact person from the Red Blood Palace had been here. The rescue of the spies had nothing to do with her. In the heavenly prison in the center of the city, there are 3 9th grade almighty, 28th grade almighty, and more than 100 5th grade almighty. This is the map, and this is the specific location where they are being held. That's all I know. Sister Yu was very sensible and told everything she knew. Xiaoling also immediately told her what she knew. After comparing them, they were roughly similar. Nodding, Suyu waved his hand and knocked the 2 out. In the dungeon of the Heavenly Knife City. The dungeon was divided into 10 regions, and each region held different prisoners. The 3rd region was a relatively important prison, and the prisoners, there were all important criminals who were involved in the safety of the region. As the intelligence organization of the Red Blood Palace, it was obviously listed as such a major criminal. Hihi, did you see? The newly captured spies from the Red Blood Palace are quite good-looking. They make my heart itch. At the entrance of the 3rd region, there were 2 9th grade almighty sitting cross-legged. The drunk old man on the left had a brilliant smile on his face, especially that one called Shiwilian. TSK. She's simply the best in the world. She can be called a stunner. That waist, that chest, that face, TSK. Just one look at it and I'll be hooked to half of my soul. The 9th grade almighty beside him was calm and composed. He said nonchalantly, You still can't suppress your impulses even after cultivating to such a level. I really don't know how you manage to cultivate to such a level. I cultivate the Carefree Heart Sutra. Only by doing as I please can I make rapid progress on the path of martial arts. The drunken old man said lecherously. The 9th grade almighty beside him shook his head and said, That woman has already been reserved by the 3rd region master. If you don't want to die, just do it. Hearing this, the drunk old man sobered up a little and smiled awkwardly. I'm just saying, forget it. In any case, once I've squeezed out all of their value, they'll be mine to deal with sooner or later. When that time comes, won't they still have to listen to me in the end? I'd advise you not to be careless. This time, the 4 great guardians of the celestial prison have assigned both of us to guard it personally. It's obvious that this batch of spies that we've just captured is very impressive. The 9th grade almighty beside him was exceptionally cautious. The drunk old man was mostly sober. He sat upright and still with a solemn expression. Since he had been guarding the celestial prison for a long time and had personally received orders from the region master to guard them, he knew that this was no trivial matter. In the celestial prison, 10 cages made of dark crystal demonic iron were lined up side by side. No magic power could break them open, not even the all-creation force. In each of the 10 cages, a human figure was suspended. There were both men and women, and all of them were covered in wounds. 2 of them had even suffered inhumane torture. Their breaths were weak, and they were on the verge of death. In the innermost cage, there was a woman with a graceful and sexy figure. Her body was so hot that it made one's blood boil. She had snow-white skin and regular facial features. There was an occasional hint of charm in her expression, which was a fatal temptation to men. Clank! The sound of the iron chains dragging on the floor echoed clearly in the empty dungeon. The 10 bound figures, who were originally quiet, trembled at the same time. Some of them, with disheveled hair and dirty faces, tilted their heads to look at the dark entrance with fear in their eyes. It's here again. The ghost face, the most terrifying person in the Heavenly Knife City's dungeon. He was good at all kinds of extreme punishments, and he could torture people to death. But for the ghost face, torturing prisoners and hearing their heart-wrenching cries of pain was an endless pleasure. There was no one in the entire Heavenly Knife region who did not know of the ghost face's existence. And there was no one who was not afraid of him. Once locked in the Heavenly Knife City's dungeon, many prisoners who had only committed minor crimes often begged for a quick death. That was because once the ghost face targeted them, they would never be able to live a life worse than death. The 10 of them had been tortured by the ghost face for a few days. 2 of them had been tortured continuously for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, their breaths were as thin as gossamer, and they were no different from dead people. For so many days, the most he had said was not to beg for mercy, but to beg for death. What do you want? What do you want to ask? We will answer. Some of them had already broken down mentally and confessed without being interrogated. The sad thing was that they had not been interrogated at all since they came in. The ghost face was immersed in torturing and never asked them. Sigh, don't waste your energy. Our value has never been in knowing anything, but in luring people to contact us, as well as the fish that slipped through the net to go to the heavenly immortal tower. After all, we have that kind of information. Other information seems insignificant, and there is no need to torture them. In order to prevent that information from being transmitted, we must kill everyone related to us. Some people cried in grief, and some begged for mercy in fear. They were not afraid of death, but they were afraid of this endless torture. Among the people, only Shuel Yin's expression was calm. When we accepted the mission, we should have thought of this day. What is there to lament about? Everyone has prepared for your funeral, so you should have no regrets. When it came to regrets, an old figure flashed in Shuel Yin's mind. That outer sanctum disciple, after leaving the sect, she did not know how he was doing. It was ridiculous to think that she, who regarded money as her life, would hand over her life savings to him. As the sound of iron chains dragging on the ground approached, the face of the ghost face, which they would never forget, walked out of the darkness. It was a short figure with a bull's head on his face, and only his eyes and mouth were exposed. The corners of his mouth were curled up, as if he was grinning hideously. Behind him was a box full of all kinds of tools for punishment, covered with dark, dried blood. As soon as he walked, the smell of blood hit them. However, behind the ghost face, there was a beautiful young man dressed in luxurious clothes, who looked like a noble young master strolling leisurely in the courtyard. He had long silvery hair, a handsome face, and gorgeous clothes. At first glance, he did not fit in with the gloomy dungeon. Subconsciously, they all had the illusion that they were looking at an immortal descending to earth. Who was he? This thought popped up in everyone's mind. However, at this moment, they finally realized that the ghost face was only here to lead the way. It was not difficult to guess his identity. He must be someone with a high status in the Heavenly Knife region. The strange thing was, after years of infiltration, they had some understanding of all the people in the Heavenly Knife region, except for the young man in front of them. You're here to kill us, aren't you? A secret agent said bleakly. 3 days was enough for them to catch the fish that escaped the net and the people who came to contact them. Their value to be used had come to an end. The young man did not say a word and walked quietly toward Shuelian. Shuelian slowly closed her eyes and sighed silently. What would come would come. However, the other secret agents might be able to die a quick death. Only she would probably suffer a fate worse than death. In these 3 days, there were more than 1 or 2 people who had shown covetous eyes to her. From the prison guards to the 3rd deputy region master, everyone wanted her for themselves. Now a young man had come. If you want to kill me, do whatever you want. If you want me to yield, go back to your mother's womb and be reborn for 10 years. Shuelian said in disgust. Huh. The young man laughed softly. Cabinet master, we haven't seen each other for a long time, and you're already hurling insults at me. How can I, who came to save you, endure it? What? Shuelian suddenly opened her eyes and stared at Suyu in surprise. The rest of the secret agents were also shocked and looked over in disbelief. At the same time, they did not forget to look at the ghost face in horror. Only then did they realize that the ghost face's eyes were blurry and absent-minded. He was obviously in a state of being controlled. All of a sudden, everyone was ecstatic. May I ask which junior brother in the faction you are? The secret agents, who had survived the disaster, were overjoyed. Let's not talk about whether you can find the key and save us first. Shut up. Shuelian scolded them lightly and said coldly. Are you all confused? Have you seen this person before? He said he came to rescue you, and you immediately believed him? Hearing this, the secret agents suddenly felt their hearts in their throats. Being in constant fear for a long time had made them careless. What if this person was sent by the Heavenly Knife region and deliberately pretended to rescue them, but was actually using them to lure some companions who had not yet been captured? Ha! Cabinet Master, you don't even recognize me? What a waste of my time coming to rescue you. The young man looked depressed. The rest of the secret agents were suspicious. From their tone, it seemed that they knew each other. Being stared at by so many pairs of eyes, Shuelian was annoyed. I don't know him, she thought to herself. When did I get to know such a handsome little fresh meat? Hey, have you forgotten so quickly that when we were in the same room, you were jealous of me and fought with other women in public? The young man said playfully. The other secret agents were deep in thought. They stared at Shuelian and questioned her. With Shuelian's charm, they did not doubt the young man's words at all. He was so handsome, and his strength was unfathomable. Not to mention women, even men would be attracted to him. Maybe he would just turn off the lights and have sex. Not to mention that Shuelian was a lonely woman. They did not doubt the young man's words at all. Shuelian blushed under their strange gazes. She said angrily, Nonsense. When have I ever been so intimate with a man? What you said really makes me. Hey, have you even forgotten our kiss? The young man sighed. Kiss, Shuelian, what's wrong with you? This person came to rescue us, but you are making excuses. Are you afraid that we will find out about the relationship between you? So you are pretending not to know? Cabinet Master Shuelian, this is a serious matter. Please don't take it lightly. Shuelian was trembling with anger. I really don't know him. I swear on my integrity. What she got in return was doubtful and disdainful gazes. How much is your integrity worth? Chapter 1061. His whole body transformed from a teenager into a sage-like old man. Shuelian was taken aback. When she saw his face, she was stunned. Suyu. Who else could the so-called young master be other than Suyu? The rest of the secret agents were pleasantly surprised. It was indeed Shuelian's old lover. Ahem, Shuelian, I don't mean to criticize you, but I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. You don't want a fresh meat, but this kind of old handsome man, an old and prudent secret agent said earnestly. Shuelian was speechless. I didn't know he was pretending to be an old man. The familiar breath and eyes made Shuelian finally recognize the identity of the person in front of her. It was the outer sanctum disciple who had worked with her to make elixirs, Suyu. Suyu smiled indifferently and returned to the body of a teenager. Cabinet Master, you finally recognized me. Shiwelian was ashamed and angry. She finally understood what he meant when he said he was jealous, hit her, and kissed her. That was most likely a joke, but they had a tacit understanding. No one would believe it if she explained it. You bastard, since you are here, why don't you save us quickly? Is it fun to tease us? Shiwelian blushed and gritted her teeth. But the tears in her eyes silently told her how touched she was. The guy who had left the faction had come to the most dangerous dungeon of the Heavenly Knife City to save her. Suyu chuckled and stepped forward to touch the cage with his fingers. It seemed that he was trying to test the material of the cage. Fool, you are still as muddle-headed as before. This is made of mysterious crystal demonic iron, which is a precious material for forging semi-manufactured fairy artifacts. It is impossible to open it with external force. Since you control Ghostface, it will be much easier to get him to help you get the key, Suyu touched his chin. Oh, it is mysterious crystal demonic iron. Then it will be easy. Suyu pulled out a silver sword from the sword case on his back and casually waved it at the cage. What made Shiwelian and the other secret agents gasp in astonishment was the cage made of mysterious crystal demonic iron was even softer than freshly baked tofu in front of the silver sword. It was cut open with one sword, and so was the chain that suspended Shiwelian. Shiwelian was dumbfounded, as if she was in a dream. She didn't even have the strength to stand firmly. Her body was so weak that she didn't even notice it. It was only when Suyu flew over and hugged her that she came back to her senses. She blushed and said, I can walk by myself. Suyu loosened his grip and said with a faint smile, a martial artist's life is like a firefly's light in the world of mortals, extinguished in an instant. I hope that you can come back to see me in your lifetime, regardless of whether it's me or my grave. Cabinet Master, do you still remember the words you left me before you left? Shiwelian was stunned, and her body stiffened. Her body, which was facing away from Suyu, began to tremble. When she turned around, tears were streaming down her face. Suyu revealed a faint smile and wiped away her tears. He then said softly, in my lifetime, the person I saw was you. Unable to contain her emotions any longer, Shiwelian leaned on Suyu's shoulder and burst into tears. After experiencing so many dangers as a woman, how could she not be afraid? All of his calmness was a forced facade. Patting her shoulder lightly, Suyu said with a smile, let's save the rest of our brothers first. Otherwise, they'll throw torches at us and burn us to death. Shiwelian stopped crying and poked Suyu's chest with her dainty fist. You only know how to piss me off. On her charming and delicate face, the bright joy and tears reflected each other, making her look even more beautiful. Next, they would save the secret agents. The material of your sword is really extraordinary, Shiwelian exclaimed sincerely. Her face was solemn. However, it's easy to open the cage, but the difficult part is how to escape with us. You may have relied on the ghost mask to deceive the guards at the door and come in, but it won't be so easy to get out. In this regard, the other secret agents also had something to say. Indeed, the faces of the guards at the door, if I remember correctly, they are two of the 4 chief supervisors of the Heavenly Knife Region's Heavenly Prison. They are extremely powerful, and almost no one below the level of all creations is a match for them. Once they are alarmed, not only will all our previous efforts be in vain, but Junior Brother Sue will also be in trouble. That's right, we need to make a long-term plan. In my opinion, we need to restrain ourselves for a few days and find a gap when the 2 chief supervisors left the Heavenly Prison. Seizing this gap is the key to our escape. Everyone chimed in one after another, offering their ideas and suggestions. It had to be said that they were very calm and clear-minded, and many of their ideas were feasible. But in Suyu's opinion, it was too troublesome. Since I can come, of course I can get you out smoothly. The 2 chief supervisors at the door don't have to worry, Suyu said. Shiwelian's eyes lit up. Did the faction give you some treasure? Could it make us invisible and hide from the 2 ninth-grade Almighty? No, it can't be. It had only been 3 days, and the faction didn't know that they had fallen. Even if they knew, they probably wouldn't send anyone to rescue them, because that would be no different from walking right into a trap. Could it be that you bribed them? This was the only way that Xu Yin could think of that was barely feasible. That was the only explanation, and there was no need to worry about them. Bribe them? Sort of. Su Yu's arm flashed with a green light, and two figures suddenly appeared. One reeked of alcohol, and the other was unsmiling. The sudden appearance of the two people had already startled them. When they saw the faces of the two people clearly, they cried out in horror and retreated, each looking for a position. They were both shocked and furious. Two chief supervisors of the great prison. Why are they here? How did they appear? Wait, Su Yuxian, are you colluding with the Heavenly Knife region? In an instant, they were all flustered. Calm down, all of you. Xu Yin forced herself to calm down from the shock. If Su Yu wanted to harm them, he could have just left them alone. Why would he need to collude with the Heavenly Knife region from 1,000 miles away? Tell me what's going on. Xu Yin looked at Su Yu and said calmly. But she couldn't help but glance at the two chief supervisors out of the corner of her eyes. Her eyelids twitched rapidly, showing her nervousness. These were ninth-grade Almighty. Just standing in front of her made it hard for her to breathe. The appearance of the two people was too shocking for them. However, Su Yu said innocently, I'm sorry, I didn't explain clearly and scared you. They're actually my slaves. As if in response to Su Yu's words, the two chief supervisors knelt on one knee and said in unison, Greetings, Master. The dungeon was dead silent. What the hell? Su Yuxian did this on purpose, didn't he? This was scarier than colluding with them. For a long, long time, no one said a word. Hey, are you all asleep? We should be on our way. Finally, Xu Yin came back to her senses. Her souls had really been scared away. But when she came back to her senses, she threw a punch at Su Yu, annoyed and embarrassed. You really are A-B*****. It was too much to scare them to this extent. Su, junior brother Su, you really scared us. The second secret agent, who had come back to his senses, patted his chest and walked around the two chief supervisors in horror. He circled behind Su Yu, still instinctively in awe of the chief supervisors. Junior brother Su, you scared me out of my wits. Gradually, they all came back to their senses and confirmed that the two chief supervisors had really become Su Yu's slaves. They were frightened and frightened, like fish facing a trapped cat. Anyway, they all walked around the two chief supervisors, not daring to get close. Hey, how did you do it? Xu Yin's eyes were full of suspicion. Taming two ninth-grade Almighty as slaves was too shocking. Su Yu was puzzled. Why, as an intelligence agency, didn't you pay attention to the news of the continent in the past 6 months? As a new celebrity of the continent, this question was a great setback for him. I don't know at all. Xu Yin shook her head blankly. We were targeted by the Heavenly Knife region half a year ago, so we stopped gathering information and hid ourselves. Did anything special happen in the past 6 months? Su Yu was speechless, not knowing where to start. You'll know when you get back to the faction. As for how I made them acknowledge me as their master, well, I just had to beat them into submission. Su Yu looked relaxed. He turned around and said, Let's go. I'll send you back to Tianya City. When he finished, he grabbed the wooden bird and carried the whole group of people up. You're flying out? Xu Yin was confused. Is it really okay to fly out of the cage so openly? Of course it's okay. So we're going to teleport back, Su Yu said. Under the control of Xu Yin and the others, the wooden bird tore the void apart and disappeared into the terrifying void crevice under the horrified gazes of Xu Yin and the others. Their screams were still echoing in the cage, but they had already returned to the pavilion of the Red Blood Palace's garrison headquarters in Tianya City. When the crevice appeared, Xiao Han and Wu Ling rushed over quickly. What they saw was a group of people in a mess. There was also a handsome young man. Master Su Yu. Xiao Han was speechless. Su Yu had been gone for less than an hour, and he had brought back a group of people. What happened to resolving the war with the help of the secret agents? They're the secret agents planted in the Heavenly Knife region. Send a message back to the faction immediately. The secret agent's stronghold has been discovered, and it has become a trap. The students who went to contact them should also send a message back immediately. Su Yu instructed immediately. As the deputy general manager, Wu Ling's face was solemn. He bowed and accepted the order immediately, quickly making arrangements. Xiao Han, prepare a resting room for them and healing elixirs. Don't neglect them, Su Yu said. Yes, Master Su, Xiao Han said respectfully. Xiao Han said respectfully. However, he couldn't help but ask, Master Su, may I ask how they got their injuries? Were you hunted down along the way? Su Yu said without hesitation, No, we brought them back from the Heavenly Knife City's heavenly prison. What? Xiao Han almost bit his tongue. The rumors about the Heavenly Knife City's heavenly prison were well known. It was like an impenetrable fortress. There were only entrances and no exits. Su Yu turned around. Could it be that he had teleported directly into the dungeon and secretly brought them out? However, he suddenly caught a glimpse of the three people standing behind Su Yu and asked in surprise, Who are they? Xiao Han's heart skipped a beat when he fixed his eyes on them. The eccentric bull-headed man was one thing, but the other two were ninth-grade almighty like him. His intuition told him that they were slightly above him, which made him feel extremely uneasy. Oh, they're the great general manager of the heavenly prison. I happened to run into them guarding the door, so I subdued them. If you need them, let them serve you. As for the bull-headed man, I think he's called Ghostface. He's only a sixth-grade almighty with average strength. Do whatever you want with him, he explained casually, but Xiao Han was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Great general manager of the heavenly prison, Ghostface. Every one of them was a familiar figure. Wait, happened to run into them guarding the door. So you subdued them? Xiao Han almost doubted his ears. Chapter 1062. At this moment, Xiao Han felt a sense of shame, as if he couldn't face the world. In Su Yu's eyes, what were the almighty like them? Were they worth more than cabbages? The spies were silent and looked at Xiao Han sympathetically. They had already been hurt to the point where there was not a single piece of skin left on them. I'll leave them to you. I'll go to the Heavenly Knife City again. Wait. Yin was shocked. You have an unfinished mission? Su Yu thought for a moment. Yes, it's a mission. What's wrong? Yin said seriously. Compared to your mission, there's a very urgent matter that needs to be reported to the faction immediately. The rest of the secret agents also looked grave. Why was she so cautious? We accidentally discovered the shocking secret of the Heavenly Knife region. It was for this reason that we were uprooted by the Heavenly Knife region. They eliminated all related personnel who had contact with us at all costs, Yin said. Su Yu vaguely remembered the conversation between the two supervisors of the Great Prison. Two of the four supervisors were sent to guard Yin, and the others personally because they had important secrets. Moreover, it was the order of the Heavenly Knife region master himself. What secrets? Xiao Han asked curiously. Yin was shocked. We found out that the Heavenly Knife region colluded with the Ghost Clan. However, what puzzled Yin was that Su Yu and Xiao Han's reactions were surprisingly calm. The birth of the glittering jewel mortal fairy, the destruction of the royal beast state, and the shocking changes of the continent in the past half a year, Xiao Han had already adapted to it. What was so strange about the addition of the Ghost Clan? As for Su Yu, he was even less surprised. Do you have any evidence? No. Yin was a little aggrieved. Because of this secret, almost all of them were buried, and all they got was this indifferent reaction. However, we have some clues. We found out that the Heavenly Knife Region Master is the main person in charge of contact with the Ghost Clan, but the third Deputy Region Master is responsible for providing various resources to the Ghost Clan, who is also the Region Master who guards our prison. You should have the account book of the resources handed over to the Ghost Clan, if we can. Before she could finish, she was interrupted by Su Yu. Okay, I got it. You can rest for a while. Having received such a cold response, Yin finally couldn't help but ask, Aren't you surprised? Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and said to Xiao Han, Explain it to them. They have rarely shown themselves in the past half a year, so their sources of information are limited. Then, Xiao Han roughly described what had happened in the past 6 months. After hearing this, Yin was shocked beyond words. In just half a year, the entire Royal Beast province had actually disappeared. Moreover, the glittering jewel mortal fairy was lurking in the continent like a bloodthirsty demon, causing everyone to feel insecure. What shocked Shuoyan the most was Suyu. He was actually that ruthless, demonic cultivator. Damned liar. Shuoyan gnashed her teeth in anger. Suyu smiled and urged the wooden bird to tear the space apart. He then said, "I'm leaving." "Wait, are you planning to look for the third Deputy Region Master to find evidence that the Heavenly Knife region has colluded with the Ghost Race?" Shuoyan guessed Suyu's intentions. "I don't think you came here to stop me." Shuoyan took out a red button from her ring and handed it to Suyu. "Take this." Suyu took it and looked at the snow lotus. He did not know what it meant. The secret agents of the Red Blood Palace have been operating in the Heavenly Knife region for many years, so it's impossible that they don't have any connections. This is the token of the master of the Ouyang family of the Heavenly Knife City. If you can find him with this, it will help you get close to the third Deputy Region Master, Shuoyan said. The information we have found has alerted the third Deputy Region Master. He is surrounded by experts, and it is difficult for strangers to get close to him. But the master of the Ouyang family is an exception. He owes us a great debt of gratitude. When we were in trouble, he wanted to rescue us with the power of his family. He is trustworthy. Give him the token, and he will find a way to bring you to the third Deputy Region Master. There is such a huge resource. Suyu smiled and disappeared into the void. In the Heavenly Knife City, in the Heavenly Prison, waves of all creation's strength rampaged in the third region. 7 majestic figures stood there, men and women, and their faces were unsightly. The fluctuations of the void's crack appeared in the heavenly prison. They sensed that something was wrong and came to investigate. The results were shocking. All the secret agents of the Red Blood Palace had been rescued. The 2 general managers who guarded the door had disappeared without a trace, without even sending out a message. 2 mere 9th grade Almighty. Of course, they did not expect that they could stop all the enemies, but they could at least send out some information. In the end, they were taken away without a sound. Not only that, but the cage made of mysterious demonic essence iron, which they were most proud of, had been completely destroyed. Judging from the cut, it was done by a sharp weapon. This caught them off guard. Even as all creation's old monsters, they had no confidence in breaking out of this cage. It doesn't matter who rescued them. An all creation's old monster with broad shoulders and a huge sword on his back said, breaking the silence. Upon hearing this, the middle-aged woman opposite him had a frosty look on her face. "You make it sound so easy. Do you think the Region Master will let this go so easily after such a big commotion?" The burly middle-aged man was full of heroic spirit. His voice was loud, heavy, and dignified. "They were lost in my Deputy Region Master's prison, and I will bear the responsibility. You don't have to worry." The people present were all Deputy Region Masters, and the middle-aged man with the sword was the third Deputy Region Master, who knew the secret. With him bearing the responsibility, the rest of the Deputy Region Masters looked much better. "How do you plan to solve this? Losing people is not a matter of a few words." A Deputy Region Master was worried. The Heavenly Knife Region Master had never been a merciful person. He would give up his pawns when the opportunity arose. The third Deputy Region Master, who had the account book, was likely to be killed by the Heavenly Knife Region Master. That's why I said that it doesn't matter who rescued them. What matters is who will come to find me next. The third Deputy Region Master's eyes flashed with a cold light. There is no doubt that the blessed and heavenly lands would send people to find the third Deputy Region Master in order to find evidence that the Heavenly Knife region had colluded with the Ghost Clan and snatched the evidence from his hands. Everyone was silent and took their leave. "Take care, third Deputy Region Master. We have been colleagues for many years. I hope you and I can survive this. Goodbye." Everyone left. The third Deputy Region Master looked up at the sky and sighed silently. In the Heavenly Knife City, a young man in fine clothes stood at the door of the Ouyang family. As a family of craftsmen, the Ouyang family was prosperous, and it was inextricably linked to many all creations in the Heavenly Knife City. Its foundation was so deep that few could match it. After presenting the token, Suyu was quickly received by the Ouyang family master. The reception place was a secret room in the backyard, away from everyone's eyes and ears. "May I ask who ordered you to come with my token?" The Ouyang family master was over 70 years old, and his hair was white, but he was full of energy and surprise. Outsiders didn't know that the heavenly prison had been raided, but how could he not know? Shuelian, Su Yu said concisely. He said that with this, the Ouyang family master would lend me a hand. The Ouyang family master sighed. When I heard that they had been captured, I tried to rescue them. However, they were involved in some secrets and were locked up very securely. Before I could do anything, they were rescued. It was gratifying. Then he said, since you are the one holding the token, if you need any help, just say it. If I can do it, I won't refuse. Su Yu smiled and nodded. I want to get close to the third deputy region master. Su Yu stated his purpose directly. The Ouyang family master was shocked, and his face fell. And then? Kill him, yes, if you have to, Su Yu said. To seize the evidence, he would most likely have to confront the third deputy region master head-on. Whether he lived or died depended on the specific situation. After a pause, Su Yu said, this matter may implicate the Ouyang family. Please consider it carefully, master. The Ouyang family master fell silent. After a long time, he made a decision. The Ouyang family is willing to help. Miss Shuelian has saved the lives of me and my family, and we can't repay her. As an intelligence collector, it was probably Shuelian who had helped them resolve a family-style disaster with the advantage of information. The Ouyang family has a foothold in the Heavenly Knife City and is growing stronger day by day. Naturally, it has become a thorn in the side of people with ulterior motives. The second region master is one of them. He conspired to frame the Ouyang family for stealing the Heavenly Knife region master's treasure. Fortunately, Miss Shuelian informed us in time, and we were able to take precautions and avoid a disaster. So you smiled calmly. Master, you don't have to explain. I trust you. May I ask how you will send me to the third deputy region master? The Ouyang family master stroked his beard and thought for a while. It's a coincidence. If it were any other time, it would take at least a month to have the opportunity to meet the third deputy region master. But in 2 days, the third deputy region master's son will get married. The party to the marriage is the powerful second deputy region master, whose status is only below that of the Heavenly Knife region master. Their children have been betrothed to each other since a long time ago. The marriage between them is a grand event in the Heavenly Knife region. When the time comes, there will be many guests to congratulate them. The Ouyang family has also received an invitation. You can come with me to congratulate them. In the meantime, you can find an opportunity to get close to the third deputy region master. What a coincidence. 2 days. If it were 3 days later, Su Yu would have hesitated because the ordeal would come in 3 days. Okay, then I will come back in 2 days. Su Yu got up. Why don't you stay in the house? The Ouyang family master said. Su Yu smiled and waved his hand. Master, thank you for your kindness, but there are too many people here. I shouldn't stay for too long. When he finished speaking, he floated away like a ghost. He didn't choose the Ouyang family, not only because he didn't want to be exposed and implicate the Ouyang family, but also because he had his own considerations. In the Ouyang family, it was very inconvenient to move around. 2 days later, the whole Heavenly Knife City was in an uproar. The streets were decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was an unprecedented grand occasion. In the Heavenly Knife region, the marriage between the second-ranked deputy region master and the third-ranked deputy region master was a grand event. All the dignitaries in the city went to congratulate them. Mr. Su, you can pretend to be a member of my family and get away with it. The Ouyang family master looked at the silver-masked youth in front of him. He had tried to see through the youth's face, but he was lost in a void. He, who was well-versed in the art of craftsmanship, understood that this was a rare and precious space treasure that could isolate the outside world from probing with the power of the void. Su Yu looked at the grand wedding ceremony and said, Master, don't worry. After I enter, I will try to change my appearance as much as possible to avoid implicating the Ouyang family. It doesn't matter. In the past 2 days, the Ouyang family has made all the preparations, the Ouyang family master said casually. After handing over the invitation, the two of them entered the mansion and waited silently in the guest hall for the wedding to begin. It was the auspicious time. Firecrackers rumbled, and a pair of celestial couples, dressed in red robes, came to the front of the hall under the blessings of many people. Chapter 1063. If it wasn't for the disputes in the court, and if his wedding with Chin Sienner hadn't been interrupted, he might have been the prince consort living in a corner, living a carefree life with a naughty and cute Chin Sienner. Perhaps even a child. Suyu sighed softly, his heart filled with emotions. As he recalled Chin Sienner, he felt extremely apologetic. She must hate him after she woke up. Nothing could be more devastating to her than the fact that her husband loved someone else in his heart. She was so stubborn, single-minded, and deeply in love with Suyu. However, what he got in return was a ruthless stab from Suyu. Suyu didn't know how to face her again, nor did he know what to say the next time they met. "Mr. Su, the third deputy region master, is here," the Ouyang family's master said, pulling Suyu back to reality. Suyu focused his gaze on the burly middle-aged man at the forefront, who had a gratified look on his face. Was it the third deputy region master? Suyu engraved it in his mind. After they have bowed to heaven and earth, the distinguished guests will come forward to present their gifts. That will be a good opportunity to get close to them. The Ouyang family took out a gift that they had prepared and passed it to Suyu. Suyu said, "No need to trouble Ouyang family master. I've already prepared everything." As he spoke, he quietly stood up and cupped his fists. "Farewell." After he finished speaking, he went to a secluded corner and changed his clothes. After a short while, the Ouyang family's master saw another person dressed in a silver mask among the crowd. Judging from his aura, it was Suyu, who had changed his appearance. In order to not implicate the Ouyang aristocrat clan, they intentionally distanced themselves from him. Soon, the wedding reached its finale. First bow to heaven and earth. Second bow to your parents, the master of ceremonies recited. This was the moment when Suyu and Chin Sienner's engagement was broken. Of course, the same scene would never happen again. His son and daughter-in-law offered him tea, and the third deputy region master drank it in one gulp. "Ha, Sheng'er, you have grown up." Tears streamed down the third deputy region lord's face. He was full of excitement and joy. As he spoke, he took out a fist-sized pearl from his bosom. "This is a 1,000-year-old pearl. It was given to me by your grandfather when I started my family. Now I pass it to you. I hope that you will live happily together for 100 years." "Thank you, father." The two daughters-in-law couldn't contain their joy as they received the gifts. Husband and wife bowed to each other. As they bowed to each other, a pair of lovers' beautiful eyes were filled with affection, and the sparks of deep love could be seen between them. "Send her to the bridal chamber. Welcome all the guests." The so-called sending off was to send off the newlyweds with gifts. "Congratulations, third region lord." "Congratulations." "Haha. Thank you for your support, elderly." "Congratulations, congratulations. I'm sure that in just a few years, you'll have a house full of children and grandchildren." "Haha. Thank you for your auspicious words." Everyone was talking among themselves, and it was Suyu's turn to step forward. What he held in his hand was a stalk of spiritual herb taken from the glittering jewel wonderland. It was 500 years old and was hard to find in the Jiuzhou continent. It was a very precious gift. "Congratulations, third deputy region master," Suyu said with a smile, holding the gift with both hands. The third deputy region master glanced at the gift with a smile on his face. "A 500-year-old Aerong Lingji mushroom. It's really rare." Suyu's lips curled into a faint smile. As long as the third deputy region master is satisfied. The third deputy region master did not accept it. His smiling and amiable face suddenly darkened and became as cold as ice. His murderous aura suddenly burst out. "I'm satisfied with the gift, but I'm afraid I don't have the fortune to enjoy it." "Is that so? A distinguished guest from the Red Blood Palace? I've been waiting for you." Bang! The broadsword on the third deputy region master's back was suddenly unsheathed and made a circle in front of him. It drew a huge arc in space and swept towards Suyu's waist. Suyu was not afraid. His body was like a dragonfly skimming the water. He floated backward as if he had been prepared. "Where do you think you're going?" The The third deputy region master slammed the table, rolled a few times in the air, and quickly caught up with Suyu. The broadsword swallowed the thunder and turned into a long dragon dancing in the air. Suyu smiled and did not speak. He did not fight back, but kept dodging until a ray of thunder swept across his face, sweeping away the silver mask and revealing his true appearance. In the crowd, there was a cry of surprise. He is not the Su Ming who wanted to assassinate the region master. The person who spoke was none other than the clan lord of the Ouyang aristocrat clan. The one who replaced Su Yu was naturally Xiaobai. He looked back at the Ouyang family master contemptuously. Master was right. You are not reliable. The Ouyang family master's face sank. He had already guessed that I would betray him. Of course. Master once said that kindness is not always repaid. It can also be repaid with hatred. Xiaobai imitated Su Yu's tone. He said that when kindness forces a family to risk extinction, to leave their homes, and to leave their roots, the gratitude has long turned into a burden. If you want to get rid of the burden, of course, the master of this kindness must die. The Ouyang family had been operating in the heavenly knife city for hundreds of years. They had a deep foundation and were like fish in water. In order to repay a kindness in the past, they had to pay the heavy price of 100 years of effort, or even the destruction of their family. Could this kindness still be appreciated? It had become a heavy burden. If it were Su Yu, it would be difficult to repay this kindness. Therefore, when he stepped through the door of the Ouyang family master, Su Yu knew that he would be betrayed by the Ouyang family. This was also why he was unwilling to stay in the Ouyang family master. The Ouyang family master's face was unashamed. For the family, I was not wrong. Xiaobai chuckled. Master did not say that you were wrong. On the contrary, he understood your actions very well and told me that if it was not necessary, there was no need to seek revenge on you. The Ouyang family master was speechless, as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat. Where is your master? The third deputy region master felt that something was wrong. Suddenly, his face changed. We have been fooled. This is a diversion. He used the puppets to create chaos, but he disappeared without a trace. You deal with the puppets. I will be back soon. The third deputy region master seemed to realize something. He abandoned the puppets and fled back to the inner yard. In the inner yard, in the bridal chamber, which should have been a joyous occasion, an unexpected scene played out. When the newlyweds entered the bridal chamber, they were shocked to find that there was a person sitting quietly in the bridal chamber, drinking their wedding wine as if there was no one else around. When he saw them enter, he showed an elegant and calm smile. The wedding wine is good. Congratulations on your marriage. Who are you? As the son of the third deputy region master, Zheng Sheng was instilled with the responsibility of a man from an early age. He immediately protected his bride behind him and kept retreating. Bang! Su Yu flicked his fingers and the door of the house closed. At the same time, a dark spell flag transformed into a formation, trapping them in the center. Don't be afraid. I have no intention of hurting you, but please don't do anything that displeases me, Su Yu said, without any murderous intent. Zheng Sheng calmed down a little, but he was shocked. How did this person enter the bridal chamber? There were masters guarding the door, and it was impossible to enter without a sound. How could he know that the masters outside the door had already been subjected to the Emperor's imperial spirit technique? What do you want to do? Breaking into the third deputy region master's mansion and openly making a scene at the wedding. It can't be as simple as asking for money, right? He subconsciously protected his bride even more tightly. Su Yu said, You are indeed the son of the third deputy region master. You are very smart, so I'll be straightforward. I am from the Red Blood Palace. Well, the mortal enemy of the Heavenly Knife region. My purpose is to take away an account book of your father. Hearing that it was an account book, Zheng Sheng was surprised. What account book is worth breaking into the mansion? An account book of your father colluding with the Ghost Clan and funding them with resources. Ghost Clan? Nonsense. My father could not have colluded with the Ghost Clan. Zheng Sheng was furious, looking young and vigorous. Looking at him, Su Yu seemed to see a younger version of himself. Your father may not have colluded with them, but your region master did. As a subject, I can only follow him, Suyu said. Zhang Sheng did not believe his nonsense at all. Who could forget the disastrous impression that the Ghost Clan left on Jiuzhou 100 years ago? Colluding with the Ghost Clan was equivalent to opposing the human race, and everyone had the right to punish it. None of the 9 great prefectures' kings would tolerate it. Well, even if what you said is true, the account book should be with my father. Are you looking for us to use us to threaten my father? Zhang Sheng showed a look of disdain. Threaten? Of course not. Suyu denied it. Because the account book is not with your father at all. How do you know? Zhang Sheng asked coldly. Suyu chuckled. It's very simple. He knows that the Red Blood Palace will send someone to snatch the account book from him. So, keeping the account book with him is the easiest way to get it because he does not know who will come to him. What if it is Mo Tianxian herself? Wouldn't it be tantamount to offering the account book with both hands? So, I guess that he must have placed the account book somewhere, and he obviously wouldn't tell me about it. So, I came to ask you, as his son, how many possible hiding places do you know about my father? Suyu wore a faint smile on his face, and he gave off a cordial vibe. Zhang Sheng was stunned. Suyu's words made so much sense that he could not refute him at all. So, are you threatening my life and asking me to take you to find the hiding place of my father? Zhang Sheng asked calmly. Suyu drank half a cup of wine and shook his head. Of course I won't threaten you, but I will threaten the bride. Believe me, in the eyes of many enemies, I am a complete spoiler. Zhang Sheng's heart tightened. He was not afraid of threatening his life, but the bride. But I have changed my mind now. Don't you want to know whether my father really colluded with the Ghost Clan? Why don't we witness it together? Then you can feel relieved, and I can find what I want. Zhang Sheng thought for a while, then nodded and agreed. On the one hand, it was for the safety of the bride, and on the other hand, it was to confirm whether this person's words were true. Otherwise, he would always take it to heart. Brother Sheng, don't be fooled. What if he covets my father's treasure? The beautiful bride reminded him. Sure, listen to me this time. Zhang Sheng patted her nervously clenched palm. If it is for money, the price of breaking into the 3rd Deputy Region Master is too high. The value of what he is after is beyond the value of the treasure. Then lead the way. Suyu opened the 5 elements heaven extinguishing formation and smiled. Not long after. This is my father's bedroom. I know that there is a secret room in the bedroom that he created with the power of the void. Only the power of the void can be used to open it, or I can find a certain mechanism, but I don't know where the mechanism is. Zhang Sheng stared at Suyu's figure as he rummaged through the room and said with dissatisfaction, Space secret room? Suyu thought for a moment, and a trace of silver sword energy emerged from his fingertips, sweeping around. Wherever the sword energy passed, the space was cut into tiny cracks. Looking at this scene, Zhang Sheng's expression was solemn. Replacing a sword with a finger, and the sword energy broke the void. His sword intent is not strong, but the sword energy is very strange. It contains the attribute of cutting everything. Bang!